Like, I know blind people that won't even go out of the house without somebody guiding them and helping them around. And my biggest fear is getting to the end of my life and going, man, I wish I had done more. Like, I don't want to get to the end of my life and be like, shit, I wasted this opportunity. And when I die, I want people to be like, man, that is the craziest blind guy we've ever fucking known.
So, Clinton, now, really good to meet you finally. I've seen you around competitions and stuff, and I've said hi, but I'm sure you don't know who the hell's saying hi to you.
Yeah, usually that, unless people say their name, I get talked to by a lot of people, and unless I know you pretty well,
Yeah.
just recognizing voice. I just know you from the time when you competed against my teammate, and he was beating you on points, and Ezekiel choked him from inside his clothes guard, and I was like, oh god damn.
Listen, man, you gotta do what you gotta do out here, man. I was losing 17-0. What do you want me to do? You know?
I know, and I'm like, that's where I know that guy from. So
oh man. So to people that, because there's a lot of people that listen to this, magicians, friends of mine all over the place. So people that don't know you, they don't know the local grappling scene. I mean, I think a lot of jiu-jitsu guys know you even in the overseas, just from what I've seen on the web. But can you give a rundown of like an introduction to your story and everything?
An introduction to my story. Well, so I'm blind. I went blind when I was just over 2.5 years old. I had an allergic reaction to penicillin. And I developed something called Stevens-Johnson syndrome, which is basically a blistering of the body. It especially attacks mucous membrane areas, so it attacked my mouth, nose, lungs, and my eyes. The way I actually went blind was the blistering in my eyes basically scratched everything to pieces and cut everything up, so my corneas and tear ducts and all of that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of physical damage, and I lost my sight.
How old were you?
So I was 2 years, 2 months when I went into
Wow.
intensive care, and I was there for 3 months. And then probably by the time I fully lost my sight and with all the aftermath and that, I was probably about 3 years old.
Mm.
So, I was brought up by my mom. My mom's a single parent. She was very tough on me, thank goodness. And, I don't know. I was going to say I had a pretty usual upbringing, but that's probably not true either. But anyway, when I was about 18, I was living in a small town called Featherston. There wasn't much to do. My brother found a wrestling gym, and he came home one day. He was a lot younger than me. He said to me, oh, Clinton, I found a wrestling gym. Let's go do it. And you should come down and have a look. And I thought he meant like WWE wrestling. So
You were like Brock Lesnar?
Yeah,
hell yeah, I'll go
much.
down.
No, I was way too skinny to be Brock Lesnar. And so I was like, no, go away. And my mum ended up coming up and saying to me, hey, just go down with him. Just keep him quiet. Go down with him. And I went down and found out it was Olympic freestyle wrestling. Got into it and really enjoyed it because I've always enjoyed sport, but, I've always wanted to train with and compete with able-bodied people.
Mm.
So I did it, and I thought, oh, here's a sport that I could do. And a lot of people didn't believe I could do very well at it, and I ended up doing quite well in wrestling. And then
Were you good right off the bat? I mean, did you have some sort of talent, or were people like, oh, you're actually quite talented at this? Or did you have to work super, super hard to beat able-bodied people, if that makes sense?
Oh, no, I was definitely not talented.
Okay.
I lost my first 40 matches
Oh, shit.
without scoring a single point. So I just got smashed all the time. And I don't know, I just decided I wanted to be a national champion because so many people told me I couldn't do it and whatever. But
Where does that come from? Where do you go, everyone's telling me that I can't do this thing. Let me just say, fuck you, and I'm going to do what I want to do.
Oh, I'm just stubborn. Always happy.
It's a good quality to have, right? Especially in these sort of situations.
Yeah, well, partly being stubborn and partly my mom telling me that that I lived in a sighted world, and that the world wasn't gonna adjust for me. That I had to adjust to the world, and that she didn't put limitations on me. Like, for example, my brothers were playing soccer in like a club soccer league, and I wanted to give it a go. So I went down and I tried to join the team and stuff. And the team, they were pretty good. They let me play and stuff. And the Blind Foundation called my mum, and they were like, somehow they found out about it. And they said, you can't let him play soccer. He's going to work out that he can't do it, and then it's going to, like, I don't know, break him or something. And my mum was like, well, I'm not going to tell him what he can and can't do. He's got to find his own limitations. And so I kept playing soccer, and I did a couple of games, and I realized pretty quickly that I was holding the team back. And so I went to the coaches and I said, look, I really enjoy playing soccer and giving it a go, but I realize I'm holding the team back at competitions, so I won't go to the games. I'll just come to training and stuff like that. So my mum was always a big fan of me working out my own limitations rather than putting limitations on me because of my disability.
And
so,
I guess when you found out that there's a sport where you don't have to have a team, you can take responsibility 100% for your wins or for your losses, that probably slotted really well for you, right?
well, yeah, exactly. And a sport where I didn't have to chase a ball. Or,
yeah.
You know, like it was, I could get my hands on someone and grapple with them. I mean, you know, wrestling and then jiu-jitsu is very hands-on. And it's funny because I get a lot of people, like when I post stuff on social media and they're like, I roll blindfolded, or I close my eyes when I'm sparring. Oh, man, sparring with your eyes closed is literally the easiest part of grappling when you're blind. Like,
yeah,
the rolling part is not hard when you're blind, because the thing is, like, you're gonna do it no matter what, whether you do well or whether you don't do well, or whether you get tapped, or whether you're gonna be able to do it. But what I say to people about is, I'm like, man, if you think training blind is easy, I challenge you to blindfold yourself at home and then get all your gear together, like pack your bag and everything. Wash your gi. Yeah, like make sure your stuff's packed, organized and stuff. Get out the door, go find a way to your training, get to training, then do the entire class blindfolded, not just the rolling part, because learning technique without your sight is way tougher than actual rolling.
Point. Yeah.
Like, get through the entire class, then get yourself home again, and then come and tell me how easy, you know, doing jiu-jitsu or wrestling blind is. Like,
it feels like every other week I see a post on Facebook of yours of the bus driver driving past you, and you're like, fuck, I had to walk like an hour from.
I know,
bro, it's it seems so frustrating. I'm just like, because I've dealt with annoying bus drivers before where they're just like I get up too late, like just slightly too late, and they just drive right past. And I'm like, bro, you know I was waiting for your fucking ass. And I can't imagine if you can't even see where the bus is coming from. And oh god,
oh man, they're just, at the moment, especially with all the COVID stuff, and so there's two major problems. One, they just cancel buses. Like, you'll be planning out like which bus to take, and then you'll be at the bus stop, and then 10 minutes or 5 minutes before your bus is meant to come, they just cancel it because the bus driver doesn't turn up for their shift or whatever. And then the other one, of course, is now that I live in Henderson. When I was living in Avondale, it wasn't too bad, but now that I live in Henderson, for some reason the buses just like to drive past. And so I did mobility training when I was younger, like how to use my cane, how to like signal bus and stuff. And they tell you, if you're standing at a bus stop, have your cane out. It's literally the only time I use my cane when I'm traveling internationally by myself, or when I'm catching public transport. And they say, look, when you're standing waiting, just stand with your and hold your cane out and wait, and the bus is supposed to stop. But like, probably at the moment, I'm getting 2 or 3 buses a month at least that just drive past.
Jesus Christ.
Don't pick me up. And then, you know, because public transport's not that great in New Zealand, it's like most of the time when I'm taking the bus, I'm going out to the city to go to training. And then the next bus is half an hour away. It's like, well, then I'm going to be half an hour late to training, and then there's not really much point in going.
Yeah, that's really annoying. So, so once you started, right? You started. How old were you when you started wrestling?
I was 17 going on 18, so
Oh, cool.
I was old.
That's when I started jiu-jitsu.
There you go.
So how long before you became objectively like decent / good? How like those 40 matches that you said you got fucked up in without scoring a single point? Over what period of time was that?
The 40 matches was probably about a year and a half or 2 years.
Jesus Christ, you guys compete a lot.
Yeah, so
Holy shit.
with wrestling, there were quite a few competitions, and most of the comps are sort of round robin.
Yeah.
So you'll be, if there are 8 people, you'll be put in like 2 pools of 4, and then you go round robin with the pool. And then what they actually do, which is a bit unusual, is like if you win your pool for the semifinals, what they do is they put the winner of pool A against the number 2 of pool B, and vice versa, and then the winners of that go on to a final, and the losers go to a bronze medal match. So, like every and of course they were doing Greco-Roman and freestyle at every tournament. So I do both. So I was doing anywhere like minimum 6 matches a day, or 6 matches a comp. So
that's a really good way to get experience. I really, it's annoying. You go to a jiu-jitsu comp, you get 1 match, and maybe it's like the bracketed number 1 guy. You lose, that's it. You're out. Fuck.
Yeah,
now you gotta, that's so annoying.
Well, there's a couple of things in New Zealand. First of all, in New Zealand, like I've now, been overseas and compete a lot of international jiu-jitsu, and there is no seeding in New Zealand, which is a bit silly since it's reasonably easy to do here. Most comps you can go, maybe not the white belt brackets, but blue, purple, and definitely brown and black. You know who the number 1 and 2 guys are in the bracket. So.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's why the round robin comps are starting to become better. Like now that, there are a few organizations that are starting to do round robin, like Stealth and the National Grappling.
Sub only.
Yeah, they like to do it round robin. So and like, there's pros and cons to it. For my white belts, I like the fact for round robin because, it gets them the mat time. But I don't like round robin because, I don't like sub only for white belts because, sometimes it teaches them not good positional jiu-jitsu, and it can teach them to be lazy, like especially guard passes, like in sub only, you're passing the guard, you don't like it, you find it hard, you're like, okay, I'll just sit back, try a foot lock.
Yeah.
Don't have to, so I think,
it can, there's like, it can definitely create interesting attack opportunities off the back, where you're like attacking legs and trying to elevate and all those things, and you can be quite aggressive with that. But what I find that I don't like about the sub only is the whole, pull fucking bottom side control meta and just try to, try to do a buggy choke and you'll see a white belt, he'll watch a bunch of YouTube and like, oh yeah, that's sweet. That's my whole game plan. I'm just going to pull bottom side control and try buggy choke. It's like, come on, man. Like learn some jiu-jitsu, and then, if you're in that spot, you can maybe throw it up, but.
And that's why for me, like, in my opinion, I reckon Grappling Industries is probably the best rule set for white belts, because Grappling Industries is round robin, but it is points based. So, you can't have technically bad jiu-jitsu and go out and hope to win matches. You've got to have positionally good jiu-jitsu before you can start looking for submissions in that. Otherwise, you will lose by points and things like that. So out of all the rule sets that I've competed in, I think Grappling Industries for white and blue belt is probably, unless you want to, well, and even then, because, they have gi and no gi on the same day. So even if your goal eventually is ADCC, because that's one of the areas where New Zealand is super behind in jiu-jitsu, right? Is even in Australia, you can compete every weekend if you want to.
Yeah, getting competition time out here is rough. I don't consider myself a competitor. I do like to jump in there and have some fun and, prepare for certain ones, but I'm not like one of these guys that competes every single competition. For me, it's draining, it's hard. There's a lot of things. I'm doing a lot of other things. I got shows, I got all the stuff. But every once in a while, I'm like, I'm going to enter this one. I'm going to prep for it. See where my holes are. Like Yoshi exposed a bunch of shit when I did it with him. I'm like, man, my top game is trash. So I focused on the top game after that. But so like there's a lot of, I use it as a tool to get better, but I don't consider myself an athlete. But I see my athletes friends, like my competitive friends, and sometimes they're struggling to get comps, like out here.
Exactly.
They're not that common.
And the thing is, competing, like, it even if you're not a competitor or whatever, like, competition does bring up the level of jiu-jitsu, right?
100%,
so
100%.
if you have, like, people think my gym is a competition gym, like we're really competition focused because we've been having really good results. We opened I've been teaching jiu-jitsu since 2017 to kids, and then I started teaching because at Tukaha the rule is you can't teach adults until, well, you're not meant to be a coach until purple belt. But I went to Pedro and I said, look, I've got a lot of experience of coaching wrestling. I want to start teaching kids jiu-jitsu. And he was like, yep, cool. And then when I got my purple belt, I started teaching adults. And so I was teaching for someone where we were just training 3 times a week. And then some of my parents didn't like what was going on at the gym where we were teaching, just like, for example, they would have like explicit music on while the kids' classes were on and stuff like that. Just little things that annoyed the parents. And they're like, man, Clinton, why don't you go open your own space? We'll back you in that. And I was like, man, I don't know anything about business.
That's a hard one.
I'm scared.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, don't worry about it. All you got to do is get an accountant and just have somebody help you with getting your lease and everything else. Like, parents and that will help you out. And so we went and did it, and I took the jump, and we opened in July last year. So yes. we got the lease and everything open in July last year. Then 5 weeks the gym's open, and then we go into a 4-month lockdown.
That's fucking rough.
Yeah, and it was so lucky that we had a good lawyer that trains with us, and she was like, when you go and do your lease agreement, make sure you have a COVID clause that if you can't access the gym, they can't charge you rent. So we were so lucky, because otherwise the gym would have failed before it even started.
Yeah.
So that was super lucky. But since so if you take out that 4 months, we've probably only been running for about 10 months now. And where we're training 5 days a week, the kids have 5 days a week training, the adults have 5 days a week training. We have white belt kids classes, and we have advanced kids classes. And so we've started doing pretty well at comps, especially my kids. And they people outside think that we're all about competition, but only about 10% of my gym are competing. 90% of my gym are not competing.
Yeah, I think that's the case in a lot of gyms, right?
Yeah.
Like the competitors, obviously with kids is different, but the competitors oftentimes are not the people paying the bills, because the competitors are, if they're real hardcore motherfuckers, they're just homeless and got no job, and they're training all the time, and so obviously you're going to have to build a kind of a family of the gym. That's kind of your main, even for our gym, like Syzygy, we have a lot of guys that go out, compete, whatever, but the kind of the group, bigger core of the group of the gym is guys like me. They'll compete sometimes, whatever, but it's like at the end of the day, you just show up and train every day,
Yeah, exactly. But then the guys that go out and compete and they grind and stuff, their jiu-jitsu becomes better, and all their stuff becomes battle tested. So they bring that stuff back into the gym, and then they pass it on, and the trickle-down effect just grows the entire level of the gym, right? And
it's also a good tester to see, like, for example, we did a whole module on takedowns and shit. I think it's been maybe two months or something, just doing a lot of takedown heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And then we had a comp, and we literally saw all our white and blue belts hit the takedowns that we were drilling. So, you could clearly see the module working in effect, You can see, okay, we spent this much effort and time into this situation, this module, this position, and boom, we had the results of the comp in those positions. So we're clearly seeing the results.
Yeah, exactly. And then, then if something doesn't work, then people come back and they ask the questions of why doesn't it work or whatever. Because the thing is, what I find is that non-competitors, once they get up to the higher belts, they become sort of a jack of all trades, but they don't really have a speciality. Like I kind of talk to, because Yoshi, my partner in the gym, his jiu-jitsu is really good, but he's good at a little bit of everything. Whereas, but if we compete, I've beaten him every time we've competed, but our jiu-jitsu is probably about the same, and that's because I have some specialized skill sets that I'm very good at, and then there's some areas that that he's better at because he's got sort of the whole well-rounded thing. Whereas for me, like, I've got a couple of guards that I'm super good at off my back. I've got a couple of passing sequences that I'm really good at. I've got good takedowns. Like I am, now that I'm a brown belt, I am well-rounded, but it's especially until COVID and I started broadening out a bit because I didn't have like world championships or anything to go to. My skill set was a lot more narrow than his, a lot more specialized than his. Whereas, he was, you can go to him and ask him a question about almost any position and he's going to have good information for you.
Yeah. Well, the thing with the specialization, right, is that it's two things. It's having a niche where you can beat almost anyone, but then it's also finding ways to funnel the game back down into those spaces.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Because like I've recently spent I don't know, over the last year or so getting hyper specialized at body lock passing, and this was like before we started doing it at the gym. So no one was doing it in the gym. I, for whatever reason, like learned this specific pass that started working really well for me. And I spent, about a year just like developing ways to get into it, ways to like what to do after I've passed, every single sort of possible outcome. And then we started doing it at the gym a bunch, and even though everyone started learning it, because I was so much more specialized in that position, I could I had, counters to the counters. I had, ideas of entries that they hadn't seen and they hadn't practiced. So it was, I know what you mean based on the fact that I spent that time. Someone else might know a bunch of other stuff, but if they're always getting body locked and they're letting themselves just, like that's just they're not going to be able to do anything or enter their game to even start attacking off their back.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, like, I've hated COVID, but for my jiu-jitsu, it's been quite good because it means I've had a period of, other than the 6 months where I got ready for my combat jiu-jitsu fight.
That, I need to ask you about that.
Yeah,
but
that was crazy.
Dude, what the fuck? Okay, you know what? We'll just talk about it now. I saw this and I was like, no way Clinton just did this shit, dude. Yeah. What a fucking mad lad. What makes you go, all right, you know what? I can't see, but I'm going to go into a match where we can just fucking slap the shit out of each other. And I'm just gonna go in and win. Like, how do you even come up with that? How does that even enter your mind?
Well, the way it entered my mind was watching the first ever combat jiu-jitsu fight that Eddie Bravo put on.
That was a while ago, huh?
Yeah, like a long time ago. That might have even been before I started actual jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
So I started jiu-jitsu in 2014. I feel like I'd seen a combat jiu-jitsu fight before then, and I was kind of like, I might be able to do that. But the reason I did it is because as a coach, I feel like you don't need to be a great competitor to be a great coach. But I do feel like if you're a coach of competitors, you need to have gone through it and felt what it is. It doesn't mean you need to be super good at it. Like Yoshi is, again, he coaches at the gym. He's kind of like you, he jumps in a comp every once in a while. He just does it. He's not comp focused.
Yeah.
But he knows what it is to go out there and compete, and so he can relate to the guys who are going out there and competing. And when they come to you and they say, "Oh, I'm nervous," or "I've got to prepare for a comp," he can relate and tell them what it's going to feel like. So I've had people ask me before to help them get ready for MMA fights because of my wrestling background. And I always felt like a bit of a hypocrite. Like,
Right.
I've been in the corner a couple of times at MMA fights, and like telling someone to get out there and fight someone, and when I don't know what it's like to be out there facing punches and stuff.
Right.
I feel like an imposter. So um, I was like, well, I can't do MMA because I'm just gonna get head kicked and knocked out. But I was like, I think I can do this combat jiu-jitsu stuff. So when I heard that Mark was thinking about putting a combat jiu-jitsu MMA show together, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym. And I started asking some of the guys, hey, do you want to roll some of this combat jiu-jitsu stuff and see what it is? We'll just keep it light and see whether I can do it. So
Mm-hmm.
we started rolling it, and I was like, oh, it's not too bad. Okay, let's pick up the intensity, until we were rolling, pretty hard rounds and hitting each other reasonably hard. And I was like, okay, I think I can do it. Like, I know, like, I knew there was a good chance that I could lose. But so when Mark put out the thing saying that he wanted, would people be interested, I sent a message, and I'm like, yep, I'm keen. Um, my grappling background. I have no MMA background or whatever, so I don't want to get matched up against some pro MMA
Right.
guy that has a lot of ground and pound experience and stuff like that. Like, I want it to be a good competitive fight. Like, if you put me in against a well-known MMA guy, I'm gonna turn you down. Like, I won't take it.
Right. Right.
So
Fair enough, because
yeah,
fuck
exactly,
getting,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So he found Kane. It was funny. He told me that Kane had no MMA experience, but apparently Kane had been training MMA and stuff. He hadn't had a fight yet, but he'd been training with the idea of a fight in mind. But yeah, Kane decided to have the match, and I trained for it, and we went and did it. I didn't know I was gonna win. Like, I just wanted to have the experience to help me with my coaching.
I mean,
The win was just a
I will
bonus.
say you do have the best credentials for the, like, you know what I mean? If you came up to me and were like, here's what I'm thinking, right? And I'm like, well, just don't get taken down and you probably be fine. Like, you know what I mean? Like just launch some guy and then just start throwing shit. But
I don't know, man.
but at the same
He
time,
cracked me so hard from the bottom that I
fuck,
was seeing stars. Like,
Jesus.
he got me one time right on the jaw, and I could feel tingly fingers and toes, and
Ooh.
and I was like, oh, alrighty then. That was
Let's not
and
get hit by that again. Yeah. Fuck.
but at least, like, when people are like, oh, what did you think when you got hit? I was like, well, I was kind of happy that he hit me hard at least once, because part of the reason that I did it was because I wanted to know, is my jiu-jitsu effective if people are allowed to hit me? And part of that is, okay, if I hit myself and if I get hit and then I'm like, oh, I don't want to fight and I want to run away or whatever, but at least it answered those sort of questions.
Right.
If I get hit, I was, when he hit me, I was like, oh, okay, I don't mind, and I can keep going and whatever. So
Yeah, man, that's super, super impressive.
it was an experience.
It's very, like, it's very, like, for me, I have a bunch of fears, right? I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah,
But to
for
see
sure.
someone like you just be like, oh yeah, this is something that's scary as fuck, and I'm just gonna do it because I've never done it, and it is what it is. That's like, it's very inspiring to people around the, like, for me at least. I mean, I've been scared of getting hit. Oh, this fucking mic stand just fell. Let me just put this back. I've been scared of getting hit for a long time now. Let me just put this back in and I'll cut it in. There we go. I've been, I've started doing some striking and stuff just to be like, man, I need to solve this issue, because when someone throws a teep, I just shell up and I freeze. I'm like, I'm scared of getting hit to the body and all this stuff. But if I can't even see where that's coming from, like, that takes the fear, to a level where it's like, it's almost like the haunted house effect, right? Like, you don't even know what's in the house, so it makes it scary,
Yeah, well, but man, my biggest thing with my life is I've seen so many blind people that are afraid to get out and live their life, and they're scared to. Like, I know blind people that won't even go out of the house without somebody guiding them and helping them around and things like that. And my biggest fear is getting to the end of my life and going, man, I wish I had done more. Like, I don't want to get to the end of my life and be like, shit, I wasted this opportunity. So, man, when I die, I want people to be like, man, that is the craziest blind guy we've ever fucking known. And if somebody else wants to outdo me, they're going to have to really put a good effort in, because, like, you know, I do crazy stuff all the time. Like, I've ridden a motorbike by myself.
What?
Yeah.
And like where?
We're at an orchard.
Okay.
Like yeah, because my thing is, like, I'll do anything crazy that'll risk myself, but I won't risk others. Like,
Right.
I've had people like, drive a car and like have someone on the side tell you left, right, straight ahead, drive on the road. I'm like, yeah, but man, if I hit some kid and killed them, man, I would feel so guilty. But man, like when I was younger, you know, me and my brother would go down to the river or whatever and ride motorbikes and stuff. And then it's just risk to me. So
Yeah.
it's like, well, you know, if I crash a motorbike and die, sure, it's not the most desirable outcome, but, you know, it's only my own neck I'm risking. And then, like, my brothers and that would just, like, if anybody even came within, like, 500 meters of us, they'd be like, yep, people have come in our zone, and I'd stop and wait until they left. And
Yeah.
But, like, I've driven go-karts with my brothers. My brother let me drive his car down the river one time. You know, like, I've jumped off like really high places. I was in Samoa for a wrestling tournament once, and there's this waterfall that tourists go in and they slide down and stuff. And so we were sliding down the rocks and all of that. And then a bunch of the local boys came down, and they were climbing up this cliff that was beside the waterfall, and they were jumping off it into the river. And I said to them, I want to do that. And they were like, it's a bit dangerous. I was like, why is that? They were like, well, you've got to really judge the jump pretty well, because if you jump, the cliff like angles out slightly. But if you jump too far on the other side, there's a rock on the other side of the big, deep pool. And I was like, okay. And I was like, let's see if I can get up to where you guys are going first. So I climbed up there, and then suddenly, like, the wrestling, we were there with a whole team, and the team didn't even realize I'd been talking to these guys. And the next thing, I'm up on the cliff, and half the team are going, oh, you crazy bastard, go on, do it then. And half of them are screaming, oh my God, don't do that, you're going to kill yourself.
Fuck, man. And
so, you know, one of the boys jumped off, and I was up there anyway, and I was like, okay, so how far out do I have to jump? They're like, 1.5 meters. How far is too far? 2.5 meters.
Jesus.
I was like, okay, sweet, I'll jump then. And I jumped off, and
you are freaking me out. My palms are so sweaty right now, dude. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, I hate roller coasters. I hate bungee jumps. I hate anything moving fast. I'm not jumping off any fucking ledges. Oh God, this is freaking me out, dude.
Oh man, like, as I said, I don't want to get to the end of life and be like, oh man, I did nothing. I just sat around at home. Listened to music, didn't do anything, didn't risk anything. Like,
see, maybe it's because I can see, but dude, I have no need to try to jump off shit. Like, I'm happy dying without ever doing that in my life. But dude, the fact that you're just like, nah, fuck it, we'll do it is absolutely insane to me, and it's beautiful.
It's like competing overseas. People, I went to the US by myself, and I was laughing about this. Again, back with one of those guys, was like, I roll with my eyes closed. I was like, okay, how about this for a story? My friend works for Hawaiian Airlines, and he was like, oh, Clinton, I'd love to help you out with getting overseas. I can get you really, really cheap air tickets. I was like, cool. And he's like, there's only one caveat. I was like, oh yeah, what's that? He's like, you have to fly standby.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So I was like, oh, what does that mean? He was like, wow, so you book your ticket, and like, honestly, I was getting return tickets to the US for like $400, and one of the times I got to fly first class for $400. So, so basically they give you the best seat available on the plane that's free.
Right.
So if you fly and there's a seat free in first class, they give it to you. If there's only one seat left in economy, they give it to you. If there are no seats left, they bump you to the next flight.
Right.
So going from New Zealand to Hawaii was fine, no problem. I flew first class. It was great. Like, what an experience. Got to Hawaii and my connection flight is full. Like,
man.
And they're like, and I'm by myself. And they're like, oh, sorry, Clinton, your flight's full. You need to come back in the morning. And I was like, wait, what? They were like, oh, yeah, the flight's full. You need to come back in the morning. So here I am, this blind guy, and I'm alone in Hawaii for the night. And so I've got to get myself out of the airport, go find myself an Uber, go get a hotel room, book in, find dinner, do all this shit in a strange country by myself. And I'm like, man, how many of you guys would be happy to do that, like, without sight?
Looking,
like, that.
That's insane.
That's tough.
Has anyone ever done anything dirty, like, due to the fact that you can't see? Like, try to move around you, try to, that kind of shit?
You mean in
competition, like trying to leverage the fact that you can't see?
First of all, if anybody leverages me not being able to see in a competition, I don't consider that dirty. I just consider that jiu-jitsu and playing the game. As far as I'm concerned, if they do it, I just take it as a compliment, because I'm like, well, if you think you need to do that to beat me, well,
right,
great. Obviously, whatever. Have they done it that I know of? I don't know. I don't think so. I have been asked a few times, like when I was at the World Champs, they asked me whether I wanted to start with contact, and I said no, and they were like, why not? And I said, well, I know that I've been training hard for this. Like, I've done Worlds multiple times, but like for this camp, I've been doing it hard for 3 months. I have my game plan. I know what I want to do and everything. And imagine now you've been training hard for 3 months. You're at Worlds. You got your game plan and everything. And then your first match of the day, you draw this blind guy, and you walk out on the mat, and the ref goes, oh, hey, and by the way, you've got to start with contact, and you've got to start with these certain grips. Like, that's going to completely throw you off and whatever.
Yeah.
So I just said to the refs, no, I don't think so, because that if I won, I would feel like almost like I cheated, and that I changed the game on them.
And you could probably, if you wanted to play that game, I mean, I'm it's admirable that you don't, but if you wanted to play that game, you could probably hyper specialize in that starting grip, and just fuck someone up.
Yeah, exactly. And then and so I was like, no, I don't want to do that. But like, if you're like, I don't know, if I have an injured ankle, for example, I always tape both ankles, because,
smart.
What are you going to do? You're going to attack somebody's weaker side, right? Like, it's just competition. It's not done with malice or anything. Most of the time it's not done with malice. It's just done because we're all competing and we're all trying to win. We know what we're signing up to.
Yeah, 100%. How long did it take to get good at wrestling? I don't remember the answer.
So
you started at 17-ish?
Yeah, so I started at 17. I didn't win a match for about 2 years. Then I started winning the occasional match, whatever. And then this Japanese guy came to New Zealand. His name is Koji Hirabayashi, and he came to do a seminar because he was going to start coaching at the gym that I was at, and he did the seminar, and afterwards he had very bad English, but basically he was like, I've never seen a blind person train before. What are your goals in wrestling? And I said, I want to be a national champion. And he was like, you've got a lot of work to do, but let's get on with it. And I was like, wait, what? Because I'd been told by so many people I wasn't going to get anywhere. I got told by the president of the New Zealand Wrestling Board at the time. He told me, give up wrestling. Like, you're not going to get anywhere. Quit. Like, go do something else.
Fuck that guy. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
right
exactly. I I got to have a real sweet moment with him a few years ago. Um, so this guy coach is like, oh yeah, like you got a lot of work to do, and he was like, well, how about this? I'll trade you extra wrestling if you help me with my English. And I was like, okay, cool. So I'd come to training, do the class, then he'd stay for 20 minutes after and wrestle with me and help me out, and then he'd drive me to the train station. And I'd get the train home, and on the way to the train station we'd talk, and I'd correct him and help him out because he just wanted help with spoken English and stuff. So we developed a relationship, and then slowly I started winning like bronze medals and the occasional silver, and then just slowly worked up, and then finally in 2007 I won my first national title.
So that was how long after starting?
Well, I started in 99, so
okay,
8 years.
8 years.
8 years.
8
I got
years.
my national title.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen, an 8-year roadmap
Yeah.
from absolute trash to national champ. That's real shit if you really put your mind to it.
Yeah. So, and then the year after that, I went to the Oceania Champs, which was the Olympic qualifiers for the Beijing Olympics. And I was like, man, I'm pretty good at this wrestling stuff. I'm a national champ. And I went there and I got fucked up. Like, I just got smashed.
Yeah.
And I came off the mat and I said to Koji, next year I'm coming back and fucking winning. And he was like, okay, we'll go back to New Zealand and work hard then. You know what it's at. Went back to New Zealand, worked my ass off for the year, went back the next year, got gold at the Oceania Champs. Ended up being a 3-time Oceania champ. So between 2009 and 2014, I was in Oceania Championship wrestling finals every year.
Wow.
I didn't win every year, but I was in the finals every year. And most of the time that was in the finals for both Greco and freestyle wrestling.
That's pretty. Is that common?
Not super.
Not very common, eh? Because I know in New Zealand, probably because of the lack of wrestling, I know a couple wrestlers that train both and compete in both. But is that common to compete at a high level in both?
Well, at the Oceania level, it's quite common, but above the Oceania level, it's not.
Right, gotcha.
And then in 2013, I qualified for it was FILA then, but now it's United World Wrestling. I qualified for the World Champs. For Jiu Jitsu people out there, it's pretty much the equivalent of qualifying for ADCC, except, I guess the top person from every country gets to go to the World Champs. So
right.
Imagine being, only one black belt from every weight division in New Zealand was allowed to go to the World Champs. That's pretty much the way it is. And in New Zealand, they don't just for Russia, US, Iran, all of those other countries, basically winning their national champs is enough. New Zealand won't send you unless you win the nationals and the Oceanias in the same year. So so I was that was pretty cool
for the fucking athletes.
Yeah, just making it hard, and it's weird because it's all self-funded. So they're like, oh, you got to meet all this real tough criteria, but you've got to pay money
for
to
it yourself.
go and compete at the World Champs as well. So. But that was pretty cool because I set 3 firsts at that World Champs. I was the first blind person to ever compete at the Wrestling World Champs. I was the first New Zealander to do Greco-Roman at a World Champs, and I was the first New Zealander to do both freestyle wrestling and Greco-Roman at the same World Champs.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. And I got to go to Europe and take my wife to Hungary, which was pretty nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
How was that?
Oh, it was nice. I liked it. I like traveling around. The food is awesome. It's cheap there because they don't use the euro. And
Yeah,
super fun.
Yeah, my dad's side they thought they were from there, then they did a 23andMe, and it turns out they're just fucking Romanian. So I don't know what the fuck they're talking about, but apparently they're Hungarian. The DNA doesn't show that. Yeah.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, now they're like on the border that we took over, that we fucking captured from Austro-Hungary. So there's always like beef between us because it's our land. No, it's our land. All this shit. So then you competed in wrestling for you said 2004 to no
2019 to 2014. So pretty much 15 years I competed in wrestling.
2009 to yeah, cool. And then when did you start jiu-jitsu? How was that transition? Why did you even decide to go that way?
Well, so I tell people that I hadn't done a jiu-jitsu comp until I started doing jiu-jitsu, but it's not true. So this guy called Mike Hoare came to wrestling in 2007, just before I went to the Oceania Champs, and he was a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, you know, the wrestlers down at Dilworth, at that point, Jiu-Jitsu was still reasonably small in New Zealand, like not that well known. And so, you know, like wrestlers think they're super tough and everything. And so, you know, he's down there and we're like, yeah, let's see how your jiu-jitsu handles like wrestling and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, we're getting him down the ground, but then he's like triangle choking us and stuff. And it was kind of fun. Yeah. And I helped him out with his wrestling and we sort of became friends. And he did a lot of cardio with me getting ready for for the Oceania Champs. But he had like these mats in the back of his car and he'd be at jiu-jitsu and then he would be driving home, and my house was on the way home from his house. Yeah. We're like, oh, I learned this real cool technique tonight at jiu-jitsu. Can I just stop by and practice it on you? So he'd set up his mats in my lounge room and just use me as a living dummy, basically. And so I went into Tukaha and met Pedro a couple of times. So between 2007 and 2014, when I started jiu-jitsu officially, I probably did about 15 jiu-jitsu lessons. Like
right. So you had a bit of understanding.
I kind of knew what it was, yeah. So in the 13 Oceania Champs, Fiela were trying to get grappling as a wrestling style. Right. So like no-gi jiu-jitsu. And so they had it at the at the Oceania Champs. And so what they did was they had all these grapplers from Guam that entered and they only did the jiu-jitsu. And so freestyle was on the first day, then Greco, and then the grappling was on the last day. Oh. And so what they did was they were like, to all the wrestlers, they were like, oh, and by the way, we'll give you all a free entry into the grappling tournament if you'll just jump in and grapple. And
they were sneaky, weren't they?
Yeah. So I
bunch of wrestlers like, fuck yeah, I'll do it. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, so I kind of jumped in and ended up having 3 grappling matches where I got smashed by sort of like brown and black belts, which is kind of cool. And then I came back to New Zealand, and basically I'd been teaching wrestling for a while, and I had these 2 kids that were really good, and they were starting to come up into my age and weight division. And I was like, okay, well, I've got a dilemma now because New Zealand team, usually there's 2 per weight per tournament, right? So I'm like, okay, do I teach these guys how to beat me and take my national spot, or do I not give them 100% effort as a coach and try and keep my national spot? And I was like, well, I've achieved everything I want to do in wrestling, so I'll stop competing and let them take it over. I called it, by the way, because both of them represented New Zealand at the Commonwealth Games this year.
Wow! Boom! There it is.
Yeah. So I kind of.
Are they still working with you, or?
No, because I stopped. I stopped teaching wrestling in about 2018. Yeah.
So you went just full time?
Well, yeah, because they moved away. So because they were young, and then they moved away to university and stuff like that. And because at one stage I was coaching 70% of the New Zealand national team.
Jesus.
70% of the New Zealand national team were training with me at Club Physical. And but you know, like one of the guys moved to Australia. Matt moved away. He went down to South Island. Like a bunch of the guys like had life changes where they moved and changed gyms and stuff. And so it all kind of just fragmented, and I'd started jiu-jitsu by then. But anyway, so the way I got into jiu-jitsu was, you know, these kids are real good. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do jiu-jitsu. And Mike had a girl who was getting ready for an MMA fight. And he said, oh, the girl she's fighting's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. She's a white belt she's got okay striking, but we don't want her to get taken down. We do anti-grappling for the camp for her. And I was like, yep, okay, cool. So I worked with that, and then she went and won her fight, didn't get taken down, and won on the feet. And
have you had you done much MMA coaching at that time, or
a little bit. A lot of the guys from Oliver MMA, like a lot of the guys that were quite good then, like Brandon Ropati was training with me, Sam Gascoigne, John Varkey, because I knew him from Calston, because I did a lot to do with the Calston wrestling team. A couple of guys from Shuriken, like Morgan and what's his friend's name? I think his friend's name is Sam. They were coming out and training with me. I actually saw Morgan last year. He was delivering some stuff to, I think he was like a drinks rep or something.
Oh, yeah.
He was delivering some stuff to a dairy.
So how'd you find the transition between open space wrestling, you know, and like on the wall? Because that's the biggest difference in MMA.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get really to do a lot of that because, like, when we were doing that, it was basically put a couple of mats up against the wall and do it. So,
right.
When I was working with Natalie, they had a padded wall, so that was the time. That was the first time that I got to do a lot of that stuff. Yep. But
did you find it very intuitive, or did you have to make a bunch of adjustments?
Yeah, it was quite intuitive. But, you know, at that stage as well, MMA in New Zealand was still, like, you know, Mark Hunt was in the UFC, but other than that, like, there weren't too many guys smashing it internationally, like Shane Young and all that were sort of just fighting in China and that, and so there wasn't much good wrestling in MMA in New Zealand at that stage. Yeah. So I didn't have to be a really highly skilled, you know, what I had was enough. To be honest now, like, you know, for an amateur fight, I could probably help people out, but for pro, you know, I would always be like, man, if you can go train with Andre, I would. Andre is a friend of mine, and we've known each other for a long time. We've toured with each other.
Does he train in the city?
Yeah, he's the CKB wrestling coach.
Yeah, I heard of a Romanian wrestler. Yeah. I knew there was a some guy in there.
That's him. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So he's real good. He's Israel's wrestling coach and that. But yeah, so I did that, and they said to me, you know, we've been looking for a takedown coach for Tukaha. Would you be interested in you know, taking the class, and you can do free jiu-jitsu lessons? And I was like, okay, cool. So, and because I went into a jiu-jitsu class, I'd done a few, but then I went and I started training for a month, and I realized, man, I really like being at the bottom again, like not knowing anything and just being a student, because by this time I'd been instructing wrestling for, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. Like, it was getting tough. Like, I was one of the best wrestlers in New Zealand at the time, and to get to the next level in New Zealand, I would have had to move overseas. And I was very poor, and I had a very young family, so it wasn't really doable. So I realized, man, I enjoy being at the bottom and enjoy learning and all of that. So, and then I was like, oh, well, okay, I'm basically retired. I'm not going to compete. And then they were like, oh, the nationals are coming up. You should do it. And I was like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. I jumped in. Because of my wrestling background, I competed as a blue belt. I got a silver medal. And I was like, oh, you know, it'd be cool for all the people who told me I couldn't make it as a grappler if I won national titles in 2 different grappling styles. So I trained super hard, and I went back the next year, and I won gold in the gi and no gi. And then they were like, Mike was like, I'm going to PAMPAX, the Pan Pacific Champs in Australia. You should come. And I was like, all right, fine. Went over, ended up winning 2 golds and a bronze. Ripped my intercostal muscle in half. Yeah, that was fun. Having a dislocating rib for like 8 weeks.
Bro, ribs are the most annoying fucking injuries, man. Because everything you do
needs your rib.
Well, everything you do ends up moving the rib, or, you know, like I've had some sternum pain for a few months now. I probably almost close to a year. It's getting better now, but it's just like breathing. lying down, standing up, like everything moves the fucking rib cage and everything.
And I basically had to hold my rib in because every movement I had, because
did you have to tape your body for the match or?
No, so I didn't realize that it had happened. It happened in a no-gi match. I was fighting a guy that was 55 kilo heavier than me. And when I took him down, it tore the muscle. And then, so I won the gold in the no-gi open weight. And then I had 3 fights in the gi open weight. And in the last fight, the guy went to throw me, and I went to counter the throw. And my rib, I didn't realize what happened at the time. All I felt was this excruciating agony. Like, I wanted to scream, but I couldn't breathe. And what I didn't realize had happened is my rib had dislocated and slid up over the top of one of the other ribs, and like I'm not lying on the ground, and they're getting the medics over, and then they put their hand on me, and I feel like this popping feeling in my chest, and I was like, oh, and it was like so sore, and they took me over to the medics thing and set me down, and the pain actually started to go away. And by the time I went up and got my medals, I felt all right. And because of the comp and that, I was still pretty tight. And so everything was being held together. And then when I went back to the hotel, I was in the shower and the rib popped out again. And I started blacking out. I thought, because it was like this sort of popping feeling. And I thought like... And because I started passing out in the shower, I thought something had punctured my lung. I was like, and I'm trying to call out to one of the guys in the room, like, hey, I'm passing out in the shower. Like, you gonna, and it was pretty scary. But
Jesus Christ, dude, that's like nightmare material right there.
So every time I coughed, I'm like holding my ribbon to make sure it doesn't push it out. And, my wife had to tie my shoelaces for 8 weeks and stuff. But so I mean, I ended up winning medals at the comp, and then I was like, well, I want to try the world champs with Jiu Jitsu, and so I went over. I did my first world champs. I lost my first match 2-1 advantage, and I was like, man, I could do this. I could win a world medal. So I went back to the US like 5 times, and finally in 2019, the first worlds I did was in the adult division. And then I started doing adults and masters world. So in 2017, so 2016 I did my first worlds. 2017 I did the adults and the masters worlds. And then 2018 and 2019 I just did masters because I couldn't afford to go to the US that often.
Yeah.
So in 2019 I got bronze at the World Masters in a pretty stacked division. There were 49 guys in my division. The guy that I fought in the quarterfinal match to get to the semifinal, which is where I got my bronze because I lost in the semifinals. At the time, he was the number 5 ranked purple belt in the whole world in IBJJFs.
Wow.
Not just my weight division, but he was ranked as the number 5 overall. And I managed to beat him 2-0. And so. People rag on Masters, man. They're like, Masters Worlds. I'm like, bro, don't knock it till you try it.
Oh, dude, what's the cutoff limit? What's the age?
Well, 30 is the first one.
Right. Well, the thing is, 35 in my mind is like peak, because your athletic potential and your technique and development as an athlete kind of meet at a crossroads, right? So around 35, most people would say, especially in an isometric sport like jiu-jitsu, you could say that's the peak. So if anything, it gets harder in masters at that age range.
I think the advantage to masters is probably in the blue and purple belt divisions though, because like my daughter is 15 now. She's been doing jiu-jitsu about 6 months less than I have. She's a green belt.
Jesus Christ.
She fights about 68 kilos, so she's long, strong, aggressive. This year, she's been fighting pretty much in all adult divisions in New Zealand because she wants to win a juvenile world title next year at blue belt. So she's been fighting in the blue belt adult women's divisions here in New Zealand. She's been winning.
Yeah,
like,
cleaning up.
yeah, exactly. So the advantage you have at Masters is if you're a 30-year-old blue belt, you've probably been doing jiu-jitsu 2 or 3 years. If you're in the adult world, you can get a kid who's been doing jiu-jitsu 8 or 9 years and has just got their blue belt. And
That's true.
And then it's a whole different.
That's very true.
Like people don't like fighting Yishao. Like he's a purple belt here in New Zealand, young. He's just turned 18 or whatever, but he's been doing jiu-jitsu for years and years, and he's a purple belt, and he only got his purple belt about 6 months ago, and he's already beating black belts in the gi, like and the black belt that I saw him beat earlier in the year, in my opinion, is one of the top 5 competitors in New Zealand, and he beat him. And I was like, oh man, that
new generation
is terrifying.
Bro, this new generation is gonna fucking it's gonna make what we did. I mean, I'm not trying to say that we're on the same level, but like I'm looking at the people in my gym that are like white belt, blue belt, right? And I'm like, fuck, man, when I was a white belt or blue belt, I sucked so much harder than these guys. Like, these guys already have, like, some level of development that I didn't reach until, like, late blue belt.
Yeah,
it's insane.
For sure. And the sad thing is that, we're still behind. Like, that development's still coming. The point where New Zealand's going to start really getting scary in jiu-jitsu is still between, I would say, 6 and 10 years away.
Yeah.
Before we even get into that ability where we can start talking like, black belt adult world champions and stuff. Like, I think it's possible, and I think it can happen. I think eventually we'll end up with a black belt adult world champion out of New Zealand.
I think
it's not going to be any of us. It's not going to be the adults. It's going to be like some 10-year-old somewhere today that's out there on the mat training, and they're doing kids classes, they're doing adult classes, they're already competing all the time. And like someone like my daughter, who I'm not saying my daughter is going to be the one who does it, but it's going to be a kid like that, or a kid like Yishao who
all that needs to happen is you need to get one of these kids that just doesn't make the All Blacks training programs that they have for like accelerated rugby programs, just kind of on the cusp where they just quite don't make it. They go, you know what, fuck it, we'll go full jiu-jitsu, and then just goes full jiu-jitsu their whole career. And I feel like that is because we have such an athletic population. We have high level rugby. Cricket is we're doing pretty well. I don't follow other sports, but just from the what I see around, like we have a population that is very we have high level MMA guys. We got Izzy, we got the CKB guys, we got all over the shop, just high level guys. So I feel like it's only a matter of time, and we need one of these kids to get developed. And yet, as you say, in the next 8 years, it's going to be a fucking problem.
And to be fair, I actually think our first black belt adult world champion is probably going to be a female, mainly because of the rugby thing. Like all our more athletic people that are natural athletes and that are being funneled towards rugby, and if they're doing 2 sports, they're like, oh, I'll choose rugby over jiu-jitsu, whatever. But I've got a bunch of girls, man. Like, my gym, first of all, is weird because our membership is about 50-50, men and women. And my kids program is more women than men. My advanced kids class is probably about 75% girls.
Wow.
And these girls are dedicated, man. Like, they, to be honest, I prefer working with, I like working with all kids, but girls as children are much easier to work with as jiu-jitsu athletes. They develop a lot faster as jiu-jitsu athletes. They develop a lot more technically.
They don't have that testosterone surging through going, I need to prove myself.
Like the boys are there to spar and like, I want to fight or whatever. And when something goes wrong and they get tapped, they're like, oh, the answer is more aggression or more force or whatever. Whereas the girls, they get tapped and they come to me afterwards and they're like, oh, Clinton, I got tapped by this. Why did that happen? How can I stop that? Whatever. Like, and so I really think that our first adult black belt world champion will be one of the girls, and I'm excited for it.
Can't wait for it to happen.
And there's just jiu-jitsu is a long game, right? So not only is it a long game individually, but bringing up a country in jiu-jitsu is a long game. Like, I mean, jiu-jitsu's been around in New Zealand for a long time. Like, it's been in New Zealand since the 90s. I mean, there wasn't much of it, but it has been around since then.
But it's grown so much, even in the time that I've trained. You know, like I started in 2015, 2014.
Yeah,
15,
so about the same time as me. Yeah,
somewhere around there. And I remember, like, you know, you'd see a black belt on the mat, and it was a big moment. You know, it was very common that there was just like either, you know, one black belt, or sometimes even a young, you know, blue, purple belt teaching. And it was very rare to have like several black belts on the mat. And now once in a while you'll just like go to training and there's like 4 black belts on the mat. And I'm like, this is so unusual. Like, this, you know, this would never have happened back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just the progress. And because jiu-jitsu is just becoming massive, like, I don't know what it is. I think it's the fact that you're not getting hit, and it's not so athletically, like, wrestling is so athletically taxing, and it's just brutal. Like, the training is brutal, the sparring is brutal, the competition is brutal. But jiu-jitsu is as tough as you want it to be. But when you are at training and you're sparring and stuff, you can't think about the problems you've had during the day or whatever. And so I think it becomes addictive. Like, I've seen so many people, they come to the gym and they're like, oh, I want to try it out. I'm just going to train a couple of times a week, just have fun or whatever. And before you know it, they're living in the gym and they're competing. And it's like, well, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You know, you get parents, you know, so when I said before about the gym and people thinking that, you know, we're a competitive gym and that's all we focus on. Actually, what I'm trying to build at Daredevil is a place where people can have the experience that I've had with my daughter, because my daughter and I have trained jiu-jitsu together. We've come up through jiu-jitsu together. We've traveled to a lot of places together. We compete together. Now we corner each other. She's getting good enough at jiu-jitsu that she corners me when I'm competing.
Nice.
And just sharing that journey with her is just so amazing, that I want to provide that experience for other families. So we've got about 10 families now where the kids are training, and then the parents like, oh, I want to give it a go because I want to know what they're going through, and then they jump on and they train. And then, like, some of my older kids, like maybe 12 and up, where they stay and they do the adult class and they train with their parents, you know. And that's the kind of thing that I want to develop and build is a really good family sort of environment where everybody can train and all that.
That's part of the best, you know, like, that's honestly the best part about it. My dad started training at the age, I want to say 46, 47.
Yeah.
Because he used to be a competitive kickboxer back in the day. You know, you had matches and stuff. And had fights. I'm so used to calling them matches because it's grappling, but in that case, it does apply. It's a fight. This whole, you know, growing up, I was always like, I'm going to beat you when I'm 18. I don't give a fuck. You know, like, just talking shit. And I was 17, and the 18th birthday was fast approaching, and I realized, holy fuck, I'm going to get my ass whooped because I got nothing. I'm not stronger. I'm not faster. I'm not fucking anything. I don't know shit. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to learn more kickboxing in a year than he already knows, right? That's not going to happen. So I was like, what the fuck do I do to beat this guy? And then I went to jiu-jitsu. And the most annoying part is I was training, you know, 3 to 4 times a week to someone that's just starting from scratch. Like, that's quite a lot. Like,
yeah, you know, it is. Yeah.
And I was getting whooped in the gym, and then I'd go home and roll with my dad in the living room and getting whooped in the fucking living room. You know, he would catch me in some headlock or some dumb shit that he didn't even know what he was doing, but he would just grab me by the neck and squeeze with all his might. And I'd be like, fuck, this hurts. So I would tap. And then, you know, over time, I kept going. And I think it was about a year in. For about a year, I was getting my ass whooped at training and at home. And then about a year in, I started catching my dad with random arm bars and whatnot in the living room. And then he goes, fuck this, I need to start, right? So then he started.
Yeah.
And then he got his fucking blue belt so much quicker. He got his purple belt so much quicker than I got it. he progressed so much faster than I did. It was fucking annoying. And the thing is, he was always like just very athletic, works manual labor all the time, constantly has a six pack, you know. So he already had a way better base than I had.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, man, like, yeah. So he hasn't trained since COVID started because mum's at high risk, so he doesn't want to, you know, just put her in that category. But everyone at the gym, like, he's like, Uncle Ray, man, he fucking scraps, you know. Like it doesn't matter what he's gonna do. He's just never it's almost like he doesn't know jiu-jitsu. Like if you ask him like, oh, what, he's like, I don't know, I just try stuff, I just do stuff, it didn't work, you know. Like he'll just try some shit, and for some reason it works every time for him. And then I do it, like I just try stuff and it never works. I have to actually like learn it step by step, be able to tell you step by step.
Yeah, man, I'm not a natural either. And it's funny because that story is going to be the complete opposite with me and my daughter, because, you know, she started when she was 7.
Right.
I just beat her up with one hand and stuff. Now she's getting bigger. And by the time she's 18, she's going to be spanking me and just tying me in knots. Like, I got 2 years, 4 months until that happens, and by the time she's 18, I think she'll be smashing me. So
you better hold on some weapons that you don't teach her. You know, just to be like, okay, let's hold off one more year.
Yeah, no, man, she's you know, but she's pretty driven and she's got her goals and she works hard.
It's cool to see, man. Like her matches are really, really fun to watch.
Yeah,
I always hear you coaching as well. It's cool to hear.
I'm getting a bit worried though, because I think I am a little bit worried. So what happened was my daughter had been, you know, she'd been training for a long time. She'd competed quite a lot, and then she went to the US and she got smashed. So 2 of the girls that she lost to, and they both beat her in like 30 seconds. One of them now is an 8-time world champion. And one of them got bronze at the ADCC West Coast Trials earlier this year. And then she just got silver at the ADCC Open yesterday. Like she's a purple belt. She submitted a whole bunch of black belts on the way to the final and stuff. So she fought 2 of the best up and coming girls. One was from Brazil, one was from the US. And she got smashed. So she came back to New Zealand. She's like, Dad, I want a medal in the US. And I'm like, okay, well, we need to get you really hard matches and you need to be, you know, smashed here as well. So we went to the Mana comp. Oh, well, first of all, we did this at an in-house. We went to they were having an in-house, and it was adult in-house. She's 12 years old. And I went to Simeon and I was like, Aurora wants to fight in the in-house. And they're like, but she's 12. I'm like, yep. But the thing is, we're all 2 kahas. So what I'm going to go and say to the girls is, do what you need to do to win. Just don't break her. Because the thing is, you're going to beat her. Like, I know that. So just, you know, and if you start feeling threatened, go harder. Like, I'm not saying, like, don't. But if you don't need to smash her, don't. But if you feel you need to go out 100% because she's beating you, then go 100%. Like, scale it up to the level that you think she can handle.
Like, maybe don't jump into a belly down armbar, but also, like, you know, put it on.
Right.
Yeah.
So we did a couple of in-houses like that, right? And then the girls started going hard with her, like, you know, because she's fighting back and she's starting to get good. I'm like, okay, so then the Mana comp came up and Mark was there. And I said to Mark, my daughter wants to fight in the adult division. Now, I know, like, for me personally, like, going to an in-house where you're all from the same gym and saying to all the girls, hey, can you look after my daughter? She just wants more experience. That's okay. But you can't do that when you go to, when you go to another comp, right? Because they've been training, they want to win and everything. So I waited until I knew that she could take it at white belt. And I was like, and I had a really stern talking to her before the comp after Mark said that she could do it. And I said, hey, look, if you even feel like you're getting submitted and you don't tap, I will never let you do this again. So you have to really take care of yourself. And I thought she was going to lose. And she won the division by subbing both the girls.
So she was 12 at this point?
Yeah, and
Jesus
a white belt.
Christ.
Oh, no, sorry. She wasn't a white belt. She was a yellow belt.
Okay.
But the girls were white belts.
Yeah.
So the rules in Mana says less than 1 year experience as beginner, and then the next is intermediate. And I said to Aurora, well, because I talked to Mark beforehand, right? I'm like, well, she's 12. She's had like more than 1 year experience, but she's going to be fighting adult women.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah, it's okay. So I said to Mark and Aurora, well, she won the division and she won it by subs. As a parent, I'm not going to let her fight beginner again. She has to go blue belt.
Yeah.
So, so we started putting her in intermediate adult matches. And what I would do is I would go to the referee before the match because, as I said, I can't ask the girls to look after Aurora because it's not fair to the girls, right?
Yeah.
So I just go to the referee beforehand. And I say to the ref, look, man, she's 12. If you think she's getting hurt in any way, stop the fight and give it to the other lady. I don't care. I just want my daughter to be safe. But, but I want these girls to go hard on her and whatever. So she spent like 2 years basically losing. And then occasionally she'd go down to a comp where like another blue belt didn't enter in her weight division. So they put her in the white belt division. So she'd get to have more fights with adult white belts. And, she won some on points, she lost and whatever, and she's slowly gone up. And so she spent 2 years fighting like intermediate women. And then this year she started competing well against intermediate women. And then she got the chance. Well, she was the only girl that was in the division, so they put her up against purple belt earlier this year.
Wow.
And then she went the distance twice with this purple belt. So the last comp, I put her in the advanced division. So because she wants to win a medal in the US. So I know now, and it was in the gi because I don't really like the idea of her fighting with heel hooks at the moment.
Yeah.
But in the gi, like toe holds, knee bars and stuff, she trains in an adult class. So she's rolling knee bars, toe holds and stuff all the time. It's not like she doesn't know what's happening. So I put her in the advanced division. But what I'm seeing, which makes me a little nervous, is other parents that have like yellow belt kids or whatever, and then they put them in against adults to compete, but they just throw them in and they don't think about like the process. Like it, people just look at Aurora now and go, holy shit, that 15-year-old's rolling with blue belt women and tapping blue belt women, and she went the distance of the purple belt woman. But they don't realize that, like, when she first started, I was really strict about making sure she wasn't mismatched in weight. The only mismatch I was happy with was age. Like, if it was, like, more than 2 or 3 kilos, I'm like, nah. You're not fighting,
Right?
I don't want her to get hurt, right?
Yeah.
You gotta manage it, and
the thing is, you've been there, you've done that, right? A lot of these parents might never have competed in a combat sport. They don't know what it's like to get out there. They don't know, and they throw their kids in.
Yeah,
And it's like you gotta, first of all, like at least put yourself in their shoes, and second of all, you can't just fucking throw them in the deep end and
yeah, you can't be like, oh, well, you've got a yellow belt, you've done 3 or 4 like matches against kids, I'm going to go throw you an intermediate level adult tournament, like where you're allowed to toe hold knee bar and stuff like that. I'm like, man, like, oh, please don't mismatch your children, because that's a way to either get your kids injured out or make them not want to go back and compete.
Right, exactly. That's a good way to get them to hate jiu-jitsu.
Well, and because like I said, with Aurora, I never went to like a adult female at a comp outside of in-house and say, could you look after Aurora because she's a kid? It's like, well, you're entering in the division, and like the rules are different in adult comps, right? Like, you know what it's like. We know what we're getting into. We go in there and sometimes people don't tap, and the ref's job is to stop the match when somebody taps, not like when the ref thinks someone's going to get hurt or whatever, right?
Yep.
So
shit happens for sure.
These kids, they need to know like how to look after themselves. They need to be aware of the submissions that are coming, and they need to be aware that the aggression in the adult divisions is a lot more than the kids. Like,
aggression, power, everything, right?
Yeah,
So
so
Now-
I do get a little bit worried. I mean, it is like if you do it right, it's a great way in New Zealand to fast track your kid and make them good at jiu-jitsu. I'm not going to deny that, but
it also
I just
sounds
hope they
like
do it smart.
It also sounds like the whole way through, Aurora was keen to do it. It seems like probably mostly her initiative, her drive.
I'm
right?
having to hold her back.
Right,
Like,
right.
like she like, oh no, that weight, there's nobody in the under 60. You're not going up to under 70. I can fight anyone. It's like, no. It was only really last year. So last year, she says to me, we went down to Christchurch, and she says to me, Dad, they asked me if I want to do the open weight. She was 14. I'm like, man,
God damn it.
you're gonna do it eventually sometime. There were no blue belts there, so I was like, okay, fine, go do the open weight then. And man, she's like rolling this 90-kilo woman. I'm like, oh my God, you're gonna get
squashed.
right, and but she survived and stuff, and so I'm like, well, know now, like you've been doing jiu-jitsu for 7.5 years.
Yeah.
You know the risk. Like I know the risk. Like I know that you could get hurt. You could get hurt, but whatever. But it's just, I worry. I do worry a little bit that parents see what Aurora does and like that they, and I'm, as I said, I'm not saying that they shouldn't let their kids go through the pathway that Aurora went through, but look into it and talk to coaches and stuff, because like there is a big difference between kids and adult tournament.
Yeah, and I'm not like, I don't know, I have a thing about parents' expectations, sometimes you see bad examples of, in sports and stuff where the parent gets mad at their kid because they didn't do well. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, first of all, get off the couch, get on the mats, and then talk to your kid about what the hell, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of that where it's like, it's really easy to look from the sidelines and be like, oh yeah, do this, sprawl harder, sprawl.
You get it from the side. Real funny. So I had this parent come in this year, and his kid's like 6. He's like real new in that. Great kid. He was at training one day, and he's under another kid's mount who was a bit bigger than him, and the dad yelling, stand up, or whatever. So the dad actually decided he wants to come in and try jiu-jitsu, and he's friends with one of the blue belts in my gym who's an ultra heavyweight, like big dude. So they're training together, and
the kid's standing on the sideline. Stand up, Dad.
No, even worse than that. So this guy gets mounted in the blue belt, and I walk over and I start, just stand up. Come on, man, just stand up. And he's like that. I'm like, come on, man, it's easy. And afterwards, he's like, oh my God, now I know what my son felt. I'm like, yeah, bro, just shut up.
Yeah, that can be quite frustrating. You hear, I mean, that nothing's worse than casual comments at MMA shows and UFC fights and stuff. And I'm like, fucking hell, just shut your mouth. You have no idea. I don't have any idea, and I train all the time, so you have no idea. Now let me ask you this, right? Compositions, do they ever get easier? Do they ever get fucking fun? Because every time I sign up and then the comp comes close and I'm like, why the fuck did I do that?
Man,
why the fuck am I doing this this Saturday? God damn it.
Like,
and then I rock up to the comp and I'm like, can I go home now? Like,
yeah.
will anyone notice if I just don't show up to my match right now? Every time, man, it's such a battle.
Yeah.
I fucking shit myself every time.
So I was a real nervous competitor. I would puke 80% of the time before I competed.
You still do, or not really?
No, weirdly enough, other than the combat jiu-jitsu fight, since I got bronze at Worlds, which is like I wanted to prove a point, and once I did it, I haven't. So that's been super nice.
Oh, that's cool.
So I think it's expectations. So I was a real nervous competitor, and I told people like, oh, you're afraid of going out and fighting. I'm like, no, I don't care. Like,
you do this shit every day. Why would you be afraid of it? Right?
I've been injured. I've been hurt. I've literally competed against some of the scariest people in the world. Like when I went to the World Champs in 2013, I was in Jordan Burroughs' weight division, And when I went up to the
Fuck me.
no man, and this is how crazy I am. I went up to the because in wrestling you tap this thing. It's like playing that game where you turn the cards over and you try to get a pair, right?
Yeah.
So you randomly and I just touch it. And when I'm going up to the computer screen in my mind, I'm going, please draw Jordan Burroughs, please draw Jordan Burroughs, please draw Jordan Burroughs, because I knew I wasn't going to win a medal at the World Champs for wrestling. I already knew that.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, if I'm going to lose, I might as well get fucked up by the best guy in the world and say, man, I got to wrestle Jordan Burroughs. Like,
there's a hilarious parallel here because one of my first blue belt tournaments, I think I was supposed to fight under 73, and then I decided like in the last 3 weeks to cut down. So I cut to under 67 or whatever the hell the class is. But I rocked up, and in the 73 division blue belt, you were competing. And I was like, fuck, man. I wanted to try take this guy down. Like, that was my first thing. And I'm like, I know I'm going to get my ass sprawled on and get fucked up. But my initial thing, I'm like, God damn it, I want to try a double leg.
Not anymore. You just double leg.
Oh, hell,
sit down.
no.
I'm a guard player now.
I don't believe it for a second, bro.
Man,
this is some reverse psychology. You're like, please shoot on me, please.
I'm 40 years old. I just sit on my ass because I'm lazy.
Yeah, but you probably get, you got so good at, because everyone must assume that you're going to take them down, right? So then they play guard. So then you just probably developed your top game like fucking mad, right?
Well, I did until so I really started focusing on my guard in after the 2018 Worlds when I lost my first fight to a really good guard player, Baron Bowler and stuff. So I started developing my guard to understand the guard. Like I had some basic guard enough to get my purple belt, but I was still more of a top player. But I decided to delve deeper into it to understand what people need in the guard so that I could destroy guards better. But then when lockdown and that all happened, I was like, man, I'm just going to become a guard player now, and at all the comps I'm going to pull guard. Because the thing is, I'm all about challenging myself.
Right. If it's not a challenge for you, it's boring. Right?
And I set goals, right? So I was like, well, I'm not going to the world champs. I'm not trying to win another world medal. Like I would have liked to, but because of COVID and stuff, I couldn't. So I was like, okay, let's start winning jiu-jitsu from my back. Like
that's cool. What guard do you play?
Cool.
Like, what's your like go-to like?
So I like close guard and then single leg X and X guard.
Yeah, cool.
So
like close guards
power guard.
Some of them are like it's funny because close guards like the first thing you learn kind of thing, and then it gets to a point where it's like, oh yeah, it's whatever. You can deal with it, and then once you get to a certain level. Like I remember getting stuck in what's his name, fucking Brownsbury. Damien, right? I got stuck in his close guard for a whole match. I like stood up. I was trying to shake him. I was trying to undo it. Motherfucker would not open his legs, and I just got like so tired trying to open his guard, and then he triangled me, and I was like, fuck. So it's one of those things where like. You learn it, it's super basic, and then there's a point where like it sort of like kind of doesn't work because everyone's shit at it, and then you get to the high level where people get good at it, and then you're like, oh man, that's a scary guard.
Well, like people watch like the world champs and they're doing jiu-jitsu and you're a white blue belt and you watch your world champs at black belt level and stuff, and you go, man, close guard must be shit because none of them are playing close guard. But the reason none of them are playing close guard is because nobody at that level accepts the close guard.
Right.
Like I was lucky enough in 2019 before the Pan American champs to train at Brad Jiu Jitsu, and I was training with the Cicero Costa team, and they had a bunch of guys that were brown belts. So Dallas and Suarez was there, Diego Pato was there. Hayago George was already a black belt, but he was there. So there are all these brown and black belts that all like won at Pan Ams, and then they all got their black belts, and then they competed at then they medaled at Worlds, and they all got their black belts, and now they're all doing really well at black belt. And we were talking about this, and they were like, man, if you have someone close their guard on you at the black belt level, it's basically game over.
Right.
You cannot have a high level black belt close their guard on you, because if you do, you're fucked. Like,
Yeah,
that's basically it.
Even if they never catch you and you never get out, all they have to do is constantly attack the neck, and then they win by advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're just fucked. Like if you have no points on the board or anything. Oh.
Yeah, no, it's close guard at the high level is. So yeah, I like it. Plus, with being blind, like I want to play all the guards that keep me as connected as possible. So I like lapel guards and stuff as well. So I play squid guard and worm guard and stuff.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
But I don't. So like I don't like spider guard, for example, because if I lose the grips on the sleeve, then they're out at the ends of my legs, and they're playing long range passing. Like long range passing it's like long range shooting is my nightmare for wrestling. Long range passing for Jiu Jitsu is my nightmare, right? Like,
yeah, okay, yeah, I see that. Honestly, I didn't consider that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I avoid the spider guy because of my hands. Like, it fucks my hands up so bad. And then I rock up to, close-up magic gigs, and I have, like, a fucked up left hand. So I'm like, nah. Now I have to do everything one-handed because I'm a stupid, like, why did I have to go do that on Thursday and now I can't work on Friday? It's just annoying. Yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of why I tend to, after that last gi comp I did at Blue Belt, I basically said, oh no, purple belt was my last gi comp. Right after I got my purple, I was like, nah, not, because when I actually on Yoshi, when I got that fucking Ezekiel, I felt a shooting pain through my hand and wrist, and I remember thinking like it was the last, I don't know, 10 seconds or something. And I remember thinking, like, if my hand breaks, it is what it is. Like, I'm not letting this grip go. Like, he's either going to win on, like, 17-0 or I'm going to win here.
Yeah.
And that's when my hand was sore for a while.
That's right. He still has nightmares about it.
Oh, I'm afraid to go against him now because I have no tricks now. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was the one fucking... So,
unfortunately, it's Yoshi's curse. Like, man, he came down to a comp last year. He hadn't competed in ages. Came down, jumped in, and he was rolling a guy, George Ryan from Gisborne, and the same thing. Like, he's winning like 8-9-0, like looking super good in his guard, and then he just got caught in a toe hold. Like, it's Yoshi's competition curse to be up on points and then just get caught in a submission.
I mean, like but the point is, well, after that I was like, nah man, no gi all the way. Like, if I train in the gi, but if I'm gonna compete I have to, because the competition prep for the gi, like, yeah, my hands are just like, I'm going home every day putting my fingers in ice and shit. It's just, I don't know how you guys do it, but for me, my hands hurt so much.
See, for me, I just find the gi fascinating. Like, I wrestled for 15 years. And as a blind person, like, again, especially with the more modern style of no-gi, a lot of the attacks started at a further out range, right?
Yeah.
So as a blind person, no-gi is much harder to do than gi, because once you get anchored onto them, at least it's way harder for them to get away, make space, and they just can't dive into like their entries and
so how did you deal with that in wrestling though? Like, would you just have a lower posture than everyone else?
Well, have a low posture and have your frames and stuff, but like, I can deal with it in no-gi. I'm not like,
obviously, yeah.
I've won matches in no-gi and stuff like that. I'm just saying it's easier in gi, especially when you play lapel guards and you literally tie them into you. Like, it's like, okay, cool.
And then you can feel which way they're going, the momentum. You can,
But like, with leg locking and stuff, like a lot of those entries nowadays are starting from a lot further out. And so it's. Yeah, no-gi is a little bit tougher when you can't see.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So to get back to it, you were saying that your competition nerves, did they get better over time, or it seems like it has?
Well, no, I think for me it was that I achieved everything that I wanted to. For me, no, man, competing it's all just icing on the cake. For me, like, some people have like said, oh, you go in masters divisions, you do this, you do that. Well, the thing is, one, I don't just go in masters divisions. My thing now with competing is I'll go wherever there's someone that I haven't competed against before. So whether that's in the adult division, whether it's in the masters division, I'll just go wherever it looks like there's a fun match. Because for me, a sort of medium long term goal for me is I would like to go back to the World Masters whenever I get my black belt and try and get top 16 as a World Masters black belt. But other than that, I don't really have any competition goals anymore. My goals aren't really. Oh man, I haven't prepared properly for a competition since my combat jiu-jitsu fight. And I've probably done about 20 comps because my daughter and my team like me competing with them. But most of my comp prep is just coaching. Like I'm going to Grappling Industries in Australia with my daughter next week, and then I'm doing the Pan Pacific Championships in Melbourne again at the end of October. And I've just started doing actual comp training, like after training, doing shuttle runs, medicine ball slams, like doing strength and conditioning, starting to do specific training for comps and stuff, like specific situational, more like comp intensity training and stuff, which I haven't done for like 2 years. The reason is because I've got gold at every belt division at Pan Pacific, so I think it'd be kind of cool if I could do it at brown and then at black as well. So it's worth putting in the effort for. But for the comps in New Zealand, to be honest, man, like other than the fact that my daughter likes me competing alongside her, and my team, especially the kids, like watching me compete and like knowing that I go through what they go through, I could retire from competing in New Zealand. Like, I mean, I don't say this to sound arrogant or whatever, but what does going to an NZ Grappler Regionals and winning another gold medal mean to me? It doesn't mean that much, right? I've been there, I've done that a bunch of times. Like I've been competing for 22 years.
That's fucking nuts, dude. That's insane.
Exactly. So winning medals at grassroots tournaments, it's not really like there's a time where that like I won't like I don't.
You're not trying to take anything away.
I don't take away from the people that do that, because man, when I was at that stage of my journey, that meant a lot to me, and it is a huge achievement if that's the point of the journey that you're at. Yeah. But like I've medaled like a bunch internationally. Like I've medaled at the Pan Americans, I've medaled at Pan Pacs, I medaled at the World Masters, so I should be able to medal. Except maybe at black belt. We'll see. I should be able to medal here in New Zealand, especially if I'm in the Masters divisions, right? But like if you're a white or blue belt, it's a huge achievement to go and win that, first of all, because the white and blue belt divisions in New Zealand are the most stacked divisions there are.
That's true.
And you're at that point of your journey where that's still a huge achievement, and it is a huge achievement. But just for me, after 22 years, it's not the same huge achievement as it is for anyone else. The other reason I keep doing it is because it's only in the last couple of years that I've started getting a social media following. And I actually don't like social media. I find it very negative.
Can be. Definitely can be.
And, there's too many people wanting to talk crap about people and want to bring people down and all of that. And I'm not about that, man. I just want people to have the best life they can have.
Well, I think what you'll find, and this coming from someone that has done social media a lot, and I've had a lot of time to think about it, I think what you'll find is that the people that are talking shit, one, they're the loudest minority, right? Most people don't feel that way, don't think that way, don't act that way. And two, their lives aren't going great in of itself. Like they don't have great lives to go with, and so they spend their time just pouring out negative energy into some facet of reality that they can influence in any way. And it's really just, it's sort of sad. Like when I see someone talking shit now, it's like for me as a social media guy, I'm like, good, keep doing that. Feed the algorithm. Please watch my video. Like it's good for my business. But, I still feel bad for them, because it's like, man, what kind of, like, who do you know in real life that goes online and just talks shit to random people they'll never see? Like, none of my friends do that. No one that I know does that. So you can imagine the type of person that would do that.
Yeah, for sure. And like I had a guy, I don't know what happened, but a post of mine that I put up just recently went pretty crazy. nearly ended up with 100,000 likes. I was like, what
Wow.
the hell?
Crazy.
This guy put a comment, and he was like, oh, why do you look like that? You're probably diseased, to be honest. And I put a comment, I was like, look like what? And he put a GIF image. And I was like, man, first of all, obviously you didn't read the
post itself.
Read the name of my page, because I can't see the picture you just posted.
Right.
But it's probably something to do with my blindness, blah, 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 whatever.
Right.
And I posted a story on Instagram, and I'm like, oh, well, you've made it when you get crap like this on your comments and stuff. And so many people were upset about it and like, you could fuck him up or whatever. And I'm like, man, I wouldn't though, because I just feel sorry for him.
Right,
like,
right. That's actually true. Like the thing what you said, like, you made it when, that is actually a true statement, because like I took a big break from social media, just trying to figure out what to do and what things I enjoy making. So I just wasn't happy with what I was making for a while. Took a big break and then started up again. And the way the social media works, like when you start up again, the algorithm doesn't push you the same. There's a lot of things that can happen. And so we weren't getting many views, right? So we started this podcast, and we like started putting things up, and for like a few weeks it was like no one was really looking at it. And then we had a couple TikTok reels blow up and all the stuff, and then we started getting hate, and I was like, holy shit, we made it, we made it to the hate. All right, cool, let's keep going, Yeah.
But the reason that I do the social media and then keep competing is because probably like anywhere between 5 and 10 times a month, I get messages either from blind people who are like, I've heard your story, and because of what I've heard, I'm gonna go and start jiu-jitsu. Or coaches reach out to me like, hey, Clinton, we've got a blind person coming in to trial the gym. Can you please give me some pointers or whatever? We want to make sure they have a great experience because we want them to stay around and stuff. And so that's the reason that I never started grappling to become well-known or that's not why I did it. I did it because I was bored and I had nothing to do. And then I had a whole bunch of people that told me I couldn't do it, and I'm stubborn and I like proving people wrong. So I was like, I'm going to go do it. But I only started social media. I had Facebook because, everybody did it, but I only had about 200 people on my Facebook. I only started social media in 2014, like Instagram and stuff. And it was only because I didn't even start my blind grappler account. Like now on Instagram, it's blind grappler and I'm known as blind grappler. But one of my wrestlers was like, oh, you need to get on Instagram and share your story so other blind people can hear about what you're doing and whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And he was like, oh, I set you up an Instagram account and I called you the blind grappler. And I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of...
You just ran with it.
Yeah, just ran with it and started doing it. And
I will say this, man. For every fucking one hater, there's 100 people you're touching, in terms of inspiration. You're touching in terms of... so
I don't get a lot of hate. That's not what I mean. But
okay.
like you see people that make it to the top, and okay, some of it's marketing and stuff like that. But you see people that make it to the top, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's MMA, whether it's whatever, and then those people start talking shit, and it's like, well, come on, man, why do you need to do that? Like, first of all, like you've got a whole bunch of people that look up to you and they think that the way that you're acting is acceptable, and like you've got impressionable kids watching you, and I had this conversation with someone else, and they were like, oh, but don't you think it's like building up the drama and all of that? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I can get that, but you see like when Conor McGregor and Khabib were fighting, and then Conor's like just talking crap about Khabib's family and stuff like that. It's like, man, you don't need to be doing that. Like,
yeah, I mean, I can see both sides of the argument from a promotion standpoint. Like that moment of Khabib with Conor, where Khabib jumps out the cage. I mean, it's an iconic moment now, and like everyone gifts it and clips it and shares it around, and it's. But at the same time, it's like, for MMA, maybe that makes more sense because it's a fight. It's a gladiatorial recreation in some ways. There was big drama, big, like it sort of hits some sort of root human nature thing of, like, should we kill him or kill him,
exactly,
all that kind of stuff. But for jiu-jitsu, it's already not a spectator sport as it is, like, and I get you could make the argument that's why we need this drama, but I think ultimately you don't have to do that by being someone who you're not, like if you're going to go online, if you're an asshole just 24/7 and you're going to be an asshole online, fair enough. Well, at least we know what to expect. But if you're going to do like a, Colby Covington level stuff where he's pretending to be a dick and, some people will believe it, some people won't. I don't think we need that WWE shit in jiu-jitsu, We definitely don't.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're going to be a dick and you're just a dick in general, then, I mean, fair enough. I guess we know where you stand. But I agree with you there. Like, I don't think we need anyone to put on a show in that way.
And then you get the young kids who, they watching social media and they're young and impressionable and they think that all these people putting stuff out on social media, they're like, oh, that's how it is. That's how my life should be. But people are always, a lot of the time, they're only putting out the positive side, and then they don't see the struggle. That's what I like with me on my page. I just try to keep it as real as I can. Like, if I have losses, I'll post videos of me losing. I'll post videos of me winning. The other night, like, I had one of my girls, she's got reasonably good triangles, and I let her set it up and she slapped it on. It was super tight and I spent 3 minutes battling out of it, and it got so tight at one point that a blood vessel burst in my nose and I was bleeding, and I was trying to hide it from her because I've kind of got this thing at my gym where if one of my white belts can catch me in a submission, I tell everybody at the end of class.
Oh, nice.
Because there's this kind of thing in jiu-jitsu where it's like, if you get tapped by a lower belt, the lower belt's not allowed to talk about it because it's like, oh man, you're bragging or you're whatever, and then maybe higher belts will go after you or whatever. But
I personally try to like tell. I don't even try to tell people around me. I try to mention it to the coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm like, bro, like so-and-so, blue belt, caught me yesterday. Like, just keep an eye on him, you know? Because if they're catching me, that means they're probably doing really well. And then if they're doing really well, they might need some stripes. They might need a belt, whatever it is. So I try to let the coaches know. I try to let, Joe and stuff. I try to have as little ego as I can around those things. Well, because at the end of the day, man, we're all training. So
and I don't understand like this thing of, I'm a higher belt. No one's allowed to tap me at training. Nobody's allowed to. I'm just like, man, how serious can we take ourselves? We're rolling around in pajamas. We're just people that didn't grow up and we want to play fight with each other. We can't take ourselves seriously.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm hiding it and like I'm bleeding everywhere because I'm giving her the chance to finish it. And I managed to get out and there's blood all over the sleeve of my gear and stuff. And I just took a photo of her after training and I put a post up. I was like, man, when your white belt's got a triangle so tight, she can make you bleed. And like there's all this blood and stuff all over my gear. And I'm like, well, that happens to me at training sometimes, I'm rolling with my white belt and she made me bleed everywhere. Like, it just is what it is. Like, I'm not going to... I guess it's just that I'm comfortable where I'm at with my jiu-jitsu. I know that I'm okay at jiu-jitsu, but I also know...
There's literally nothing you have to prove to anyone, so...
And I'm like, but I also know, like, I've rolled with some of the best jiu-jitsu people there are, and I know where I'm at. Like, I know I'm not the best, but I know I'm not the worst, Man, I know I'm not even the best in New Zealand, like... somebody asked me, oh, Clinton, where would you rate yourself in competitors in New Zealand? I was like, man, I don't even think I'd put myself in the top 20. Like,
there's some fucking talent, man. Like every time I roll with Matt McMeeking, I can never say his fucking last name right.
Yeah.
Every time I roll with him, it's like he's in Australia right now at Lachlan's gym. But
I'm hoping to see him next week.
Oh yeah, next week.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going over there,
Melbourne. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Hopefully I'll see him.
Yeah. But every time I roll, I go, okay, you know what? I've been working on this new fucking sequence. It's been like a couple months. It's getting real good. He hasn't seen it yet. Like I might catch him with it, and I go in and like the opening grip will work once. He'll stop my sequence like 3 moves in. And then I never get that again, ever. I can never land that, and I'm like, you motherfucker. Now I have to spend another 6 months on some new shit, and just for you to shut it down in a day.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I just get reminded of the level, you know? It's just like, holy fuck. There's some motherfuckers out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've rolled against Matt a few times in comps, and he's like one of my favorite competitors in New Zealand because he's such a gentleman, but he's such a savage. Like, like I saw him at a comp, and he's rolling with the guy, and you could tell the guy doesn't know leg locks very well. And he gets him in a heel hook, and he's just sitting there, and he's like, "Look, man, it's over. Are you sure you don't want to tap?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, I think I want to tap." That's
such a Maddie thing to do.
Yeah, exactly right. And I can think of some other people in New Zealand, if they were in that position, they would have just ripped the guy's fucking knee apart and just like, I just don't give a shit. I'm just gonna hurt you. But Matt's literally like, "Hey man, let's not do this. I don't want to hurt you."
What's even crazier is that he used to be like, you know, a very, I don't know if he was national champion, but he was very highly ranked in kickboxing in New Zealand too. So, you know, he goes from a savage to a savage and just fucking the nicest guy you could ever meet. Like if you saw him on the street, you'd be like, "Oh, you know, I could kick this guy's ass, no problem." Turns out you just fucking, you get dinked by a shin across your face.
And he's so polite to everybody. He's always just got an encouraging word to say to everybody. And so that's the kind of thing I think jiu-jitsu should be, right? Like if you're at the top of the game, you should try and bring people up and try and make them feel good and like, you know, not bring people down and not
100%.
like try and
I think when
belittle their, like, you know, it might be a small win to like me, but it's a huge win to them. But like it's their huge win, right? So I'm going to celebrate their huge win with them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like, "Oh, but you know, if you went to the world, you get smashed." Well, bro, that's the next step. You know, you keep going up the steps.
Yeah, I mean, you were happy when you got that first one, right?
Yeah, so, exactly. So,
and I think like if we set that precedent at the top, again, let me take myself out of it because I don't feel like I'm anywhere near the top. But if the top guys in the sport, especially in the local scene, right, set that precedent, and you see guys like Maddie, you see guys like you, just respectful, nice, you know, all the stuff, then we set that culture in the gyms as well, right? Because white belts will come in and they'll be spazzy for a while. They'll try to prove themselves for a while, but then they'll look at the top guys and be like, "Oh, that guy doesn't act like that."
Yeah.
You know, like he's not smashing, you know, small girls in the gym just to show that they can. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. I shouldn't be doing that either, you know? So it sets the culture of everything. It's kind of spirals from the top down.
Yeah, exactly. And
yeah,
I just... You know, I've seen a few crazy things in competitions in New Zealand. I'm like, man, this is just New Zealand. We all know each other. Like, why are you being like that?
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, we do a lot of leg locks, a lot of leg locks, and coming from Maddie and everything. And if I'm in a tournament and you grab my heel, I don't care if it's a good bite or a bad bite or whatever the fuck, there ain't no late stage defense. I'm tapping right then and there. Like, I don't want to even like risk the chance of blowing my knee out in a fucking local grappling tournament. Like that's the dumbest shit. You know what I mean? Like 6 months out just for some fucking...
and that's what I tell my guy. And even worse, you see it in training. Like guys are like, they're like in full on joint locks and they're like, "Oh no, I'm not gonna tap." It's like, bro, like, okay, so let's say you don't get the tap and somehow you magically escape this position and you end up, you know, somehow getting the top of the roll. You didn't end up winning anything, and now you're out of jiu-jitsu for 6 weeks. Like, who really won there? Nobody, because now the guy that you're rolling with doesn't have a training partner, or it's a one less training partner in the gym, and you're sitting out of the gym not getting better. If you just tapped, you could go away and like,
train tomorrow.
Hey, how do I get out of that more effectively next time?
Yeah.
In fact, I just get mad when I see guys doing that in the gym, like. It actually really annoys me when I see my guys like, "Oh no, I'm in an armbar, but I'm not gonna tap." It's
right.
Bro, just don't be that guy. Just tap.
And I mean, unless you're practicing late stage defense, your partner knows.
Yeah.
You know, like if I'm rolling with Maddie and we do heel hooks, like I'll try to spin out of it because I know he's not gonna put it on. You know, like if he's like I can trust my training partners, if they see I'm even for whatever reason I'm stupid and I roll the wrong way, they'll just let go of the heel immediately. Like I can trust that. But if you're, you know, not at the high level enough to even recognize that, or you're at a fucking tournament, or, you know, it's just like two white belts going at it. That's just tap, bro. Just tap.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. So I want to show you something, and I wasn't sure what to do, and I think I have a really cool idea. So let's work through this. All right.
Okay.
So Amy,
we'll try blind person magic.
There we go. So it's going to be an interesting one. So Amy, can you please send that file to Clinton, and just confirm that you got it, but don't play it out loud, on your messenger.
This is going to be fun too, because people ask me how I do my social media. So
yeah, I was going to ask you. Is it a big narrator?
Oh yeah, so you can. I don't know if you can hear
Yeah.
it. Everybody thinks it's speaking another language, but it's not. It's just. Oh, sorry. I forgot my phone updated itself to iOS 16, so now I've got to kind of learn this.
That's all good, man. We can. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, here we go. I think. Okay, so I've got the voice message.
All right, cool. All right, so, we're gonna do kind of a theater of the mind sort of thing, right? So, I want you to imagine that you like sort of wake up. You don't know what, you know. It's you don't wake up, but you're just like in this corridor. Okay, it's a long corridor, stretches for as far as you can tell forever, right? And on the left side, on the right side, there's like picture frames on the wall, right? And you're walking through, and you're just walking through, and you look closer, and you realize, oh shit, these are like jiu-jitsu positions, right? Like there's just random jiu-jitsu positions, and you just keep walking, and you start to realize that on one side, it's every single possible way that you could win. Okay, so you realize that this is actually inside your subconscious. It's positions that you know. It's jiu-jitsu positions you know. So one side, it's all the jiu-jitsu positions that would result in you winning, all the possible permutations of like a win, right?
Yeah.
And on the other side, you realize that it's all your like your greatest nightmares, all your like ways you could lose, every single possible way. You know, you fucking. I don't have to go into detail because I'm sure they're all swimming around. You know, especially before matches. So as you're walking, there's a big earthquake happens, right? Big rumble. Brrr. One side just collapses into rubble. Okay, now which side collapses into rubble? Is it the winning side or the losing side?
Probably the winning side.
The winning side just crashes down, right? And you just see everything sort of like, so now it's like half a hallway, but on one side it's just rubble with pictures inside sticking in and out of the rubble. And you start sifting through the rubble, right? And you kind of kick around, and you realize that they're sort of in categories. They're in big, like, you know, one group of rubble and pictures and stuff is like, you know, there's a bunch of points, wins and stuff, you know, but you sort of just walk past them, and you realize there's like, you know, there's a huge mole. I don't know what you call like a hill of rubble. I don't know what that's called, but it's a huge kind of rubble cluster of like leg attacks, right? Leg submissions. And you keep going, and you realize that there's another group, another mountain of rubble, and it's all like limb attacks, right? Like arm attacks. Yeah. And you keep going, and you realize, okay, these are all the like the neck attacks, all the like different chokes and stuff, right? So you start clearing things away. What do you clear? Like which one do you go for the first? Like the legs, the arms, or the neck?
I'm gonna go for the neck.
All right, so you clear away the neck, right? So you like just start sort of like, I don't know, almost like not brushing, but like with your hands, you just start scooping away all the neck stuff. So you're left, there's like two big piles. There's the legs and the arms, and you just grab a bunch, and like you just grab one of the two. Like you just grab all the rubble in your hands and your arms. Which one do you grab?
Wait, what?
So there's the legs, just a pile of leg attacks in picture frames sitting on the floor, and there's the pile of arm attacks sitting on the floor, and you just scoop one of them up into your arms. Which one do you scoop?
Arms.
Arms. Okay. So as you go to grab this pile of rubble, right? All the materials and the whatever was in the walls, and you know, sort of just starts to dissipate away, and it starts to kind of like, it's almost like sand falls through your fingers, right? And you're left with like a bunch of picture frames of arm bars, right?
Yeah.
Like different ways of attacking the arms, right? And you sort of like throw them up into the air, and you realize that there's like sort of like two categories, and they just sort of merge into these categories. So there's like the armbar from top or armbar from bottom, right? You could do an armbar from like the top position or an armbar from a guard position. And you throw them up and they're just sort of floating in the air, right? And as they're floating in the air, there's like a big wind, a big kind of like storm that just scoops up one of the picture frames. Which one does it scoop up? The armbar from the mount or the armbar from the guard?
Armbar from the guard.
So it scoops it up, right? And it's just kind of like circling with all the other, I was going to say gravel, but it's not gravel. It's all the other rubble of the leg locks that we cleared away. And it's just like a big kerfuffle, and everything settles down. And that armbar that's like still sitting in the air, the armbar from the mount just slowly just falls into your hands, and you kind of grab the picture frame, right? So right now you're holding the armbar from mount, the picture frame in your hands, and as you stare inside the picture frame, right, you're no longer holding the picture frame. You're no longer in a corridor that's half broken, half earthquaked, half stormy. There's none of that. All of a sudden, you can feel the sweat on your back. You can feel the sweat dripping down your face. You are in a match. You're inside a match. You're in an armbar. You're in a mount position in the match.
Yeah.
And you see the guy's elbow go across the center line, and you go, "Oh shit, I could take the arm right now. I could take the arm."
Yeah.
And you go to take the arm. You go for the S mount. You go to wrap the arm, and you feel the elbow slightly slip. So you go, "Ooh, he might be able to get out here. I can either." It's the last seconds of the match. It's the last seconds of the match. I can either go for the armbar. I can go belly down and just try to smash through. Or you might get his elbow out. And before you can make that decision, everything goes black and you wake up.
Yeah, okay, cool.
All right. Do you want to play that voicemail that we started off with in the beginning?
Okay.
Let's see. I mean, I don't know what it is. It's an interesting one. Let's see what it is.
Said, Clinton Davies wins the world. And I go, what the hell? So I click on it, right? And turns out you were like down on points, and the last 30 seconds you subbed the guy top mount armbar. So I don't know if that means anything to you, but I figured I'd just let you know. Cheers.
Okay.
There we go. That's what I figured I wanted to show you. So
That was pretty good.
thank you.
I can't believe you actually made a magic trick out of jiu-jitsu even.
Yeah, man. I mean, I figured, I looked into the braille cards option and all this other stuff, and I'm like, man, why am I fucking around with this shit? He cares way more about jiu-jitsu than magic, so let's fucking show him something that best of both worlds.
Oh no, man, I'm a Harry Potter fan.
Oh,
I was
really?
sad when I didn't get my letter.
Well, you know what? I didn't get a letter either, and that's why I became a magician on my own, right? Freelance. Fuck this shit. I don't need no one's approval.
Man, that's pretty cool. Like,
Thanks, man.
You don't get to meet too many magicians. It's a pretty. How long have you been doing that for?
I've been doing magic for about, let me think, I'm 25 now, so 13 years. Yeah, I started when I was 12.
Oh, wow, nice.
Yeah.
Have you ever found a way to use magic in your jiu-jitsu?
So I've actually had this discussion quite a bit.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And it's quite an interesting one, because what I found, right, is there are elements of deception that are ingrained into any combat sport.
Yeah.
Because if you know what I'm doing, and if I could just give you everything I know in your mind, and then I tried to do something to you, you would just stop it instantly, because you would recognize it, you would know exactly where you're failing, exactly what details you're missing, all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
So there is an element of having to almost trick your opponent into giving you a grip, trick your opponent into letting go or thinking that they're safe when they're not, trick your opponent into, oh, I'm going to go for this, knee on belly to mount, but then they defend, so I'm going to switch to the other side And that's where my real attack was, but I wanted him to give me that reaction in the first place. And there's a lot of these sort of concepts like conditioning your opponent. So for example, anytime you have, like classic example in wrestling, snap down, touch the head, shoot. Super basic. I saw DC set that up actually in his last wrestling match. That one he did with, I don't remember his name. But that's literally basically the psychology that goes into the scam. There's a scam called Alba Negra, 3-card Monty. It has many different names. 2 cards are red, 1 card is black, and they try to mix them up, and you have to try to find the black card, right?
Yeah.
That psychology is exactly the same. It's setting up, it's me throwing the red card, throwing the red card, and then when I want to win, I show you the red card, but I throw the other one.
Yeah.
And so it's the same idea. It's the snap down, touch the head, go. Because you're expecting a snap down on that last time.
Yeah.
And there's no snap down, and that's when you overcommit to putting your head up, and that's when they go for the doubles. So like all of those things are very much the same as magic. It's very much ingrained. Now, where there is like a little bit of crossover, and it's so small that I wouldn't even count it as magic, but there are like little things you can do, like when you're in a deep submission where you have a, like complete poker face, playing around with sounds. So, when you're getting choked, trying not to make that gurgle, because that obviously gives away that you're getting choked really badly. There's a lot of things that like kind of cross over in the way I think about, when I'm rolling or competing. But I wouldn't say it's enough of an edge to say, yes, it made me better at jiu-jitsu. Like that's not true, because it's already ingrained. All the deception is already ingrained within the art.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh, pretty exciting though.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So you like Harry Potter, huh? What's your...
Oh, yeah, Harry Potter. I read a lot of like fantasy,
nice.
Science fiction stuff. People always saying to me, man, Clinton, read David Goggins' book, read this, whatever. I'm like, man, I'm always in the gym. I'm always training. You
don't need more motivation. You need some escape.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just like, man, whenever I'm on the bus or whenever I've got like time to myself, I like to listen to my Audible book, and it's usually like, fantasy or science fiction, and like far away from jiu-jitsu and stuff. I like Star Wars, and
nice. I might have to get some recommendations here, because I got into Harry Potter. So I was very conservative Christian. My parents didn't let me read Harry Potter when I was growing up. But yeah, I read it when I was year 12, so 16, 17, for the first time. I hadn't seen the movies and everything. So I was like, let me see what the fuss is about, And I fucking loved it. Like the universe was, like very believable.
Yeah,
but then also still quite, fantastic. Because a lot of sci-fi for me it's very hard when you're talking about a Megatron 3005 and they, like all these technologies, warp hole technologies and stuff. Like it's cool, but it's hard for me to really put myself there.
Yeah, exactly.
But when it's like almost a modern setting with some little tweak, which is what Harry Potter is, I find it very, very compelling. Yeah. So I really liked it.
I know, yeah. I just like all sorts of stuff. At the moment, there's this really, I joke about it with my wife. I call it alternate fantasy, but I just started getting into reading like lit RPG books and stuff as well, which are quite interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of fun, and I don't want my books to be so lighthearted that it's just like piss take books. But yeah, I don't want it to be jiu-jitsu related. Don't want it to be this. Man, at the moment I'm teaching like 20 classes a week, and I'm trying to do my own training.
That's got to be hard,
trying to
man.
progress myself.
How do you do that? How do you manage the teaching and the training? Because I started teaching like very, very little, like, once every couple of weeks, some kind of thing. 1 class a week even, and that's been real fun, but it takes a lot of energy and a lot of thought and a lot of planning to put together anything like a proper class that's actually going to be useful to anyone. Yeah. So how do you balance that?
So I like to teach in blocks. So we'll do like 3-week, 4-week blocks. So at least I sort of know where I'm at with the subject. With my advanced kids class. So my white belts class kids is a lot of discipline. I'm very strict. Like when I'm showing technique, they're sitting up the end. They have to be on their knees or their legs crossed with their hands on their lap. They're not allowed to talk unless they say, "Excuse me, Coach Clinton," beforehand. And if they break any of these rules, like if one of the kids break the rules, they all do burpees. So
Right.
it's you're a team. So if one of your team does bad, everybody gets punished, and that way everybody reminds each other to stick to the rules and stuff. And we do quite fundamental jiu-jitsu with them, right? Like basically we do basic how to stand up from closed guard, basic open guard pass, and we only like look at 2 or 3 passes in that white belt class, and we just recycle them. A couple of attacks from mount, a way to 2 ways to escape the mount, 2 ways to attack the back, a way to escape the back, 2 attacks from side control, a way to escape side control, 2 takedowns, and then like break falling, because I think falling's super important. Forward roll, backwards roll, and and basically once they understand this stuff, they can get their gray and white belt and move up to the next class. But the most important thing is just because they get a gray and white belt, they have to get invited to go to the advanced class, because the most important thing with the advanced class is they can self-manage, meaning that if I set a drill and then I have to go off to the bathroom, or I have to go over and meet a new person coming into the gym, when I come back on the mat, they all better be doing that drill.
Right.
Otherwise, we're going to have issues. If they're running around the mat playing tag or something crazy when I come back, then that they just wouldn't, because the results, they wouldn't enjoy it. So the advanced kids class and my adults class, I basically teach the same thing. So whatever block we're doing in the advanced kids is the same block we're doing in the adults, minus out heel hooking for nogi. And even then, like some of the kids train in the adult class, and I don't mind it showing the kids heel hooking if they're from the advanced class, because they know if they do that to kids, I'll kick them out of the gym, or they'll get a suspension or whatever. They've got to learn this sort of stuff. But like even in my advanced class, I teach knee bars and stuff to them. My advanced kids class are allowed to roll with straight footlocks, because I believe, especially with the way nogi's going, that they need to start thinking about their feet now, because a lot of my kids, if they continue on with jiu-jitsu, by the time they get to 16, they'll never be allowed to fight in beginner divisions ever. So they'll be thrown straight into intermediate divisions where their legs are going to be free target. So if they're not thinking about it now,
I think straight footlocks you get enough warning. You know?
Exactly.
And like even if you, this isn't, don't do this, people. Don't. We just have a really good front footlock. Straight footlock girl in our gym, Nina, and
Oh yeah, she beat Aurora.
Oh really? Yeah.
She's like one of the only. She's one of the few adults that's beaten Aurora. She tapped her very fast.
She's very good at front footlocks. Front footlocks, straight footloks.
Straight footloks. Yeah.
And like I'll literally, basically like our roles. Me and my role with her is literally always I let her go get shin on shin, and then I'm just defending the foot the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's absolutely annoying. Like if I don't go full like fat man smush, like she'll just constantly go back, like refeed to the foot, refeed to like every time, and then I'm just constantly playing catch up with my base, trying to get back to a neutral spot, and then she re-enters it's really frustrating. And so yeah. Anyway, when she goes, like when we do these exchanges, I'm trying to give her the best honest looks at defense. So sometimes I'll let my foot go a bit longer than I really should. But with that straight footlock, it'll hurt for like the next day, and then it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Whereas any sort of twisting footlocks,
so that's why they don't.
Heel hook, those
so
are going to be.
That's why we don't That's why I don't teach those in the kids class.
Yeah.
We drill knee bars, but they're not allowed to roll with knee bars until I think. I'm about to get some orange belts in the class, and I think once they get orange belt, I'll start allowing them to experiment with rolling with knee bars. We'll see how it goes. I just don't want kids blowing each other's knees out. But again, it's the same thing of you got to walk that line of if they're orange belt, by the time they get 16, as soon as they turn 16, they're going to be fighting those rules. So you don't want them to be like disadvantaged.
Yeah.
So I try and keep a block. So I I plan out the block. What are we working on? Try and start with. My first thing is like no point in teaching you anything from a position if you can't hold the position. Like for example, we've been doing a big lasso block in the gi at the moment, and I say to them, like, man, there's literally no point in me showing you anything from lasso if you can't hold that lasso in. Like if they can weave that hand to the other side of the leg, there's literally no point in me showing you anything.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to be able to do it. So, the first couple of sessions is how to get into the lasso, like how to enter, and then like how to retain the lasso, right? And then we start working on attacks and try and work it in systems like, okay, so the first look is we're on our knees, so these are the attacks. And then we move on to like they stand up on either foot, these are the attacks, they make it up to the feet, and I try to show systems, because,
how long do you spend on a system? Like how
between 3 and 4 weeks. It depends on
nice.
how they're doing with it and how they're getting along with it.
Yeah, I found that sort of deep dive into one specific style, position, whatever, really, really game changing. You know, like I've trained without that and I've trained with it, and the improvements have been like exponential.
So I got my brown belt in 5 years. So I got my brown belt very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And the reason that I think I did that is because I never went to training without a purpose. So I never. So basically, I was doing jiu-jitsu for about 6 weeks, and Pedro gave me 2 stripes on my white belt, and he was like, now what I want you to do is every time I look over and see you when you're sparring or whatever, you're to be on your back playing guard, and when I give you your blue belt, you'll know you've done enough work on your back. Right. So I went from doing okay against white and blue belts to just getting absolutely, because I'm a wrestler, I'm like, shit, if I put my back on the mat, I've lost.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I need to have a process here. So the first thing I was like, okay, I'm going to develop a guard. What guard? Well, closed guard made sense to me because for a blind person it's good. Okay, so the first 2 weeks I was like, okay, if I can just close my guard on each of my partners when I'm rolling, as far as I'm concerned, I won training.
Right.
I don't care whether they pass my guard. I don't care if they sub me. I don't care. So long as I can close my guard on every person, I won training.
Yeah.
And then the next 2 weeks, I was like, okay, now I'm pretty much getting in there. Like I'm white and blue belts, I'm able to close my guard. Now I've got to have an attack from here. We weren't doing a closed guard block, so I went with one of the most tricky options. I decided to go for omoplatas from closed guard.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I was like, okay, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to close guard, then I'm going to try omoplata everybody. And so every round when I'm rolling, I just feed it there, right? Like, go close guard, try omoplata. Go close guard, try omoplata. If they passed my guard or whatever and they started getting into good positions and I couldn't get myself back to the close guard, I would let them get to the submission so that we could reset so I could start getting back to the close guard. Because I'm like, oh, this guy's sitting in mount. I'm not able to get this back to the close guard. This isn't where I want training to be going. Here's my arm, tap me.
Right.
And like, not like so obvious so that it's like rude, like, hey, stick it right out there. But, when he started entering into the submission, I wouldn't fight it too hard because I'm like, oh, cool, now we're back to the game, right?
Yeah.
And so I've kind of taken that attitude into all my training. Like, even now, like, I have things that I want to work on. And I think if you can have that attitude of training and working on one specific skill for a long time and build and then build a system. So then, when the omoplata didn't work, I was like, okay, I need a backup plan. So if I don't get the omoplata, what am I going to do next? Okay, so I'm now allowed to try an omoplata and I'm allowed to try and do this. So, and, for like 6-8 weeks, all I did was like just allow more of this to happen. And then, then after 8 weeks, I was like, okay, now I need to work on something else, and then something else.
That seems to be a very common trait of people that get good at especially jiu-jitsu. Like I remember, I feel like it's John Danaher telling a story about how some kid came in and was like, oh, I tapped Gary Tonin. And he's like, oh, yeah, right, cool. Like, we know what that means. It means Gary was working some shit,
Yeah.
Because Gary apparently would get tapped 8 to 10 times a session, being the best guy in the room. And so that tells you about how they're training. That tells you about what they're doing,
Yeah, and like I'll tell my guys all the time, I'm like, man, if you're not getting tapped at training, all that tells me is that you're relying on your A game all the time, and that you're not trying to get better at jiu-jitsu. Because if you're trying to get better at jiu-jitsu, especially as even up to purple, brown belt, even black belt, like if you're in a room full of black belts and you're trying to get better at jiu-jitsu and you're trying to do things that you're not as good at, not as sharp at, you're trying to develop another part of your game, you're probably going to be getting tapped. So my thing is, if people aren't getting tapped in training,
unless you're, as you said, unless you're literally working your A game, in which case, fair enough.
I reckon
that's right before comps and stuff, right?
I reckon I'm probably the brown belt in New Zealand that gets tapped the most by white belts, because when I'm training, I don't see rolling with white belts as my training. I see it as their training.
Yeah.
When I'm rolling with white belts, other than working escapes, and even then, I should be able to escape unless a white belt's 50 kilo heavier than me and completely jacked or whatever. I should be able to escape almost any position they put me in.
But even then, 50 kgs is not a lot if they don't know what the fuck they're doing.
So so even working escapes, it's kind of like blue belts, if I want to train a blue belt, it's like, okay, here's my back. Here, maybe with white belts, the escape is fully locked in, rear naked choke. Okay, now let's see if I can get out. And maybe that's helping me out, but most of the time.
But even then, that's not really helpful, because the way they do a rear naked choke that allows you to get out means that it's just a shit rear naked choke.
Yeah.
And then if it's a shit rear naked choke, that's not what you're going to find in competition.
Yeah.
So how is that helping you,
So I just see white belts as, so a lot of the time, I leave a lot of openings and then, man, I get tapped. It just happens.
I find lower ranks, I find I get more out of trying to figure out what to tell them on how to improve than actually beating them, or, you know what I mean? Because trying to distill what they're doing wrong in my own head and then explaining it in a way that's that's okay, that's good with where they're at in the game and their understanding of the game, seems to help me solidify my own knowledge better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
There's nothing, I don't really gain much out of smashing white belts, right? Unless, if they're going to be a bit of one of those meathead spazzy guys. All right, come on, man, come on. Let's just tie you out real quick, and then you can roll with the other guys, and then you're not going to hurt anyone.
Usually with me, with those guys, I give them a warning, because my thing is they're white belts. They don't know, right? The one that really annoys me is white belts that just dig their elbows into your thighs and close guard. So someone starts doing that to me, and I'll stop the roll, stop, and they're like, wait, what? I'm like, bro, don't do that to me. That's not a smart way to open the guard. You're just doing it to be annoying. It's not going to make me open the guard. It's just going to make me annoyed, and then I'm going to start using more jiu-jitsu on you and go harder.
You're not going to like this intensity when you really feel it. Yeah.
I'm going to set the pace and the tone of the roll of whatever you want. So just relax, man. If you stand up and you try and pass my guard technically, I'm going to let you open my guard. I'm going to let you enter into guard pass and stuff. I'm going to let you work, because smashing you is not really... It doesn't really help my jiu-jitsu. My job as a brown belt rolling with you as a white belt is to help you get better at jiu-jitsu, make you better, so that in 2 years from now, you're a good training partner for me.
And also your other job rolling white belts is don't get hurt.
Wow, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've had some guys just try to jump past and shit, and you're like, bro, you just uncontrolled weight, threw yourself into me with no real reason or rhyme or anything. Oh, man.
I nearly had this 18-year-old kid break my ankle because I had him in close guard, and he decided to try and forward roll. He stood up, and then he tried to forward roll over my close guard. And I was not expecting that, and I was like, oh, man.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it can be rough out there, you know.
And so with our so we do the blocks, but we do have a Wednesday night which is self drilling and sparring. So we do 50 minutes of drilling, so you can come in and drill whatever you want. You can go around and join in with a group, or like, you know, if you see blue belts or purple belts or whatever working on something that you like the look of, you can go over and say, "Hey, that looks cool. Can you show me what you're doing?" And jump in with them and stuff, and we share ideas and that, and then we roll for 45, 50 minutes. Because I do think that it is important for people to be able to grow their own style of jiu-jitsu, you know, like what works for me is not what works for other people. Like me and my daughter are a great example of this. I coach my daughter, and our jiu-jitsu style is completely different. She's very bendy. You know, she likes inverting. She likes doing sort of cooler stuff. I like being heavy on top, or just playing more basic close guard, whatever, stuff like that, you know. And so even though I'm a coach, you know, her style is developing in different areas. So she needs a chance to be able to work on her style and things like that. And there are other people in the gym that are like that as well. So like it's a good chance for our like big dudes to go and ask quick, because, you know, sometimes I'm showing stuff and they're like, "Man, Clinton, I just can't do that. I'm not that flexible." And you know, like my blue belts or whatever that are heavier, they'll be like, "Oh, this is what I do when I'm rolling. Like this is how you use your weight a bit, and this is how you know."
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I took a specific stance, I don't know, somewhere around early blue belt or something, where I'm like, man, I don't want to have to pull guard. You know, like I that shouldn't be a thing where it's like I can only pull guard, so therefore so I was like, I need to learn how to wrestle, but there's no real wrestlers here. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, people do stand up and stuff, but like, you know, there wasn't anyone that's like, "Oh yeah, like the way you are, like I've wrestled all this time." So I just started standing up with everyone.
Yeah.
Like every roll I'd stand up, I'd get Joel and be like, "Yep, let's go on the wall." I'd get fucked up, you know, like and over time I feel like I got pretty decent at, well, at least comfortable. Let's put it that way. I got comfortable standing. I got comfortable starting from standing, which was my biggest fear in competition. You know, like that's like for a lot of jiu-jitsu people coming out, like because we do a lot of groundwork, that initial part of the competition where it's like, we're both standing now. That's pretty scary because we don't do a lot of that in the gym often, you know?
Yeah.
And like coming from a straight jiu-jitsu guy, that can be kind of like, what the hell?
So we don't start any of our rolling from the ground.
Right, there you go.
We start stand up.
That's nice. Yeah. For us, it's like it's optional. You know, like you can or you don't have to. And so I took it in my own hands to be like, you know, I want to build that like real fucking like top pressure, just kind of like basic jiu-jitsu that will work like in a fucking fight, that will work everywhere. You know. But then we got a lot of guys, as you say, with that crazy, you know, berimbolo inversions and crazy shit that I'm like not really doing. And I'm starting to see that like they're kind of getting some success with it because I don't ever do that. So all of a sudden I'm seeing a hole. So it's really good to have like a wide variety of people that train and do different stuff, because then you have, you know, like Nina, I train with her for footlock defense. Then I go to Maddie for heel hook stuff. Then I go with Joel for wrestling. And then I go, you know, and so it's really nice. Like, you know, the fact that your daughter has someone that's like got these super solid basics, you know, I hate to say basics, but it's sort of what people describe as basic jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But fundamentals, let's say that's better. Really solid fundamentals, but then she can still explore and develop that like modern game.
Yeah, for sure. And at the moment, like, you know, we're still a very new gym. Our adult, like my advanced kids are good because I've got a bunch of kids that have been together for, like in the advanced kids, probably the one of the least amount of time has been there 3 years, and the one with the longest amount of time has been there 6 years. So they've all been training and coming up together. So they're all getting really good and pushing each other real hard. But the thing is, in our adult program, we don't have as much depth yet, you know. So we're trying to build, like at the moment at the gym, man, we don't even have a black belt. We've got 3 brown belts. We've got a purple belt. We've got 2 blue belts that are very close to purple belt. We've got maybe 10 or 15 blue belts, and then all the rest is white belts for our adults. So, you know, we're still in our infancy when it comes to adult program, but it's just a matter of just keep going. And
Yeah,
as I
man.
said, it's like, you know, jiu-jitsu is a long-term game. As I said about like the competition scene, it's the same with everything. It's a long-term game. Personally, it's a long-term game as a gym, right? You're not going to become like, you're not going to become the top adult gym in 1 or 2 years. You know, you need years of building up your team and
Yep.
all of that to,
Yep. And I
to
mean,
be able
like,
to
you know,
get
when
there.
I started at the gym I was at, you know, fucking 8 years ago, you know, I was just one of the white belts. Now, you know, I take some classes sometimes, you know? So it's like the guys that start today in your gym in 10 years time might be the guys that are running classes, might be the guys that are your black belts, might be the guy, you know what I mean?
Well, that the advantage that I'm having, so long as I don't do anything stupid, the advantage that we're going to have at Daredevil is we're going to go from having a very sort of lower grade adult team, like overall, like mainly white and blue belts, to suddenly we'll have a lot of brown and black belts very, very quickly. Because, as said, like I've got a bunch of kids that have been training for a long time now. They're very good. They're very technical. You know, I've got another girl like Aurora who is 12 now. She's competed in adult comp. She's already submitting white belt adults and adult comps, and she, you know, they're starting to go overseas. We took a team of kids over to Australia earlier this year to compete. We're taking 8 kids over to the Pan Pacific Championships at the end of October. We're taking 3, my daughter, and then 2 of the other girls are coming over and competing next weekend at the grappling industry. So those kids are just going to keep getting more and more experience, and so long as I can keep the retention and keep them in the gym, you know, in the next sort of between 5 and 8 years, as it will end up with like 15 sort of brown and black belts sort of very quickly. They'll all come like very fast.
That new generation, man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be a scary time.
And it'll be good because it'll be nice to see some deep black belt divisions fighting in New Zealand, right? Like,
Yeah.
not just 1 or 2 guys in their 40s, like having a roll and then that's it for black belt for the day. Or not even getting black belt people competing. Like, it's just, I don't know. There must be over 200 black belts in New Zealand now, and I just can't believe that there's really probably only about maybe 10 black belt competitors in New Zealand, and most of them are part-time competitors. Like, they just jump in every once in a while.
Yeah.
It's kind of, but I guess it's because the average age of black belt in New Zealand is probably around 35 or something like that.
Yeah. And also, like, you know, how many black belts are, like, you know, they do jiu-jitsu on some level for a living.
Yeah.
You know, and then that filters out a bunch of people. And then, yeah.
Because I was trying to work this out the other day. I don't even know if I could name 10 black belts in New Zealand that are under 30. I think I got close, but I don't think I could get there. There were Caleb and that guy I competed against, George. They just got their black belts, so that they're both under 20.
Under 20.
Sorry. Under 30.
Yeah.
Maddie's under 30. I think Bevan's still under 30. Sangray's under 30. Man, there's not too many.
Is Joel over 30? No, surely not.
Oh, is he a black belt now?
Oh, no, he's not. You're right. I just, in my head, he's a black belt because he's a fucking beast. But
Yeah, see, there's another guy that I used to work wrestling when I was at Club Physical. He used to come. That's
really?
Joe Armstrong.
Yeah.
So
he's our wrestling coach at the moment. Yeah.
So he used to come over and wrestle with me all the time.
Yeah. He fucks me up so bad.
So he must be close to black belt. He's probably not over 30. But yeah, it's like so hard to find a bunch of black belts that are like the kids that went to Australia. They were like, "Oh my God, Clinton, there's black belts first thing in the morning," and I was like, "Yeah," and then they come back to me at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They're like, "Clinton, there are still black belts fighting." I'm like, "Yeah, that's the next level."
Any normal place that actually has jiu-jitsu, yeah.
Don't worry, it's coming in New Zealand.
Yeah,
It's coming.
It's gonna be good. It's
Yeah,
gonna be good. As I
sure.
said, man, there's definitely been a huge improvement in terms of like numbers and everything since I started. So I remember fucking seeing, who was it? It was like Dave Johnson, I believe his last name is. I might be wrong. One of the black belts from Paolo's gym back in the day when we were the same gym. He went into a comp and competed against a guy. They just merged two brackets. It was like they merged the brown belt adult with the black belt master
Yeah.
because they didn't have anyone. And then they had one match in which he managed to footlock him, the brown belt guy, and won like what was the black belt division at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like, well, I mean, you know, I super happy for Dave, but it was like, you know, there's just not enough black belts to really even compete at the time.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, it's coming up, and I mean, even my gym, right? Like we officially opened in July last year. Then we had the 4 months of lockdown. When I moved from where I was, 50 people came with us.
Wow.
So I had 50 people there. We've got 120 now. Ooh, so you know,
big business moves.
Well,
let's go.
We're trying to grow it, and we're not even really advertising or anything. It's just word of mouth and
that
and
is
all of that
some of the
sort
best
stuff,
advertising,
you know?
right?
So, but even that, you know, like we're growing, like all the other gyms are growing. Like there are some big gyms out there now. So, and we're still a baby gym compared to some of the big gyms.
Yeah, man. So, do you have any links up that people can? Do you have any like donation stuff?
Unfortunately, not at the moment because so I'll take my daughter to the World Champs next year, but that's in June. So
I see.
I feel like it's too soon to be putting up.
Well, you let me know when you have shit, and we can either have you back on, or I'll just put up the links on this one, or we'll figure out something.
Yeah,
to chuck up some more exposure.
And if anybody's interested in sponsoring my daughter or myself and like going overseas and doing all this stuff, they can message me on Instagram at Blind Grappler. I don't know if anybody out there knows a blind person who wants to get into jiu-jitsu and they want to talk to me, reach out. I do like anybody who tries to reach out to me on Instagram. I try to message them back and stuff. I do have, well, it's not the biggest following, but I'm up to about 16,000 followers now. So I don't follow everybody back, mainly because sometimes like the Instagram handle, I don't even know half the people that are following me, right? Like that, and I can't see the profile picture. So it like, I probably got friends that I don't even follow on Instagram just because like I don't know that it's their Instagram. So unless they personally message me, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fair enough, to be honest.
The blind man's life, you know. If you want me to follow you, it's not insult. Just send me a message and tell me who it is.
It's a two-step process, but we'll get you done. Right?
Yeah, but yeah. So you know, if people want to follow me and follow my journey, and
cool. So Daredevil if you're in Auckland, go check out the gym. Daredevil in Henderson, is that right?
Yep. We love visitors. We don't have any mat fees like for visitors. We just love people to come down and visit and train and just have a good time. As long as you want to have a good time doing jiu-jitsu, then you're welcome on our mats.
Hell yeah, man. So at Blind Grappler on Instagram, Daredevil in Henderson. Clinton, thanks for coming. I'll shake your hand right here.
Thank you so much.
Awesome, dude. That's been fun, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. It's been a podcast. We out.